The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. For thousands of generations, the Jedi have studied its mysteries, the Sith have bent it to their will, and countless civilizations have lived and died under its influence. But what happens when something arrives that the Force itself cannot fully explain, a power born from a different reality entirely, carried by a warrior who never learned to surrender? The space above Christophsis burned with the fury of war. Republic Venator-class star destroyers exchanged crimson turbolaser fire with Separatist frigates, their shields flaring like dying stars with each impact. Vulture droids swarmed through the debris field in chaotic patterns, hunting the V-19 Torrent starfighters that twisted between the capital ships. The planet below, a world of crystalline towers and desperate civilians, waited to see which side would claim victory, which army would land in their streets. General Obi-Wan Kenobi stood on the bridge of the Negotiator, hands clasped behind his back, his bearded face illuminated by the tactical display. Beside him, Anakin Skywalker gripped the railing, his mechanical hand tight enough to leave impressions in the metal. "Their left flank is exposed," Anakin said, pointing to a cluster of Separatist ships breaking formation. "If we hit them now—" "Patience," Obi-Wan interrupted gently. "Admiral Yularen is repositioning the Resolute. We move too soon, and will overextend." Anakin's jaw tightened, but he nodded. The Clone Wars had taught him many lessons. Patience wasn't one he enjoyed. Then the void tore. It wasn't a hyperspace signature. It wasn't an explosion. The fabric of space simply split open like a wound, orange and gold energy pouring from the rift in patterns that made the bridge crew shield their eyes. Alarms shrieked across every console as sensors tried and failed to classify what they were detecting. "What in the—" Anakin stepped forward, his connection to the Force suddenly screaming in confusion. Through the rift came a figure wreathed in blazing chakra, tumbling through the vacuum of space unconscious and trailing energy that burned like a sun. The tear sealed behind him as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the falling form and the dissipating remnants of power that tasted wrong to every Force sensitive within a parsec. Obi-Wan felt it too, a presence that wasn't dark side or light side, but something fundamentally other. His hand moved instinctively to his lightsaber. "Get a tractor beam on him," Admiral Yularen commanded, his voice cutting through the confusion. "Whatever that is, I want it in the hangar bay before the Separatists decide they want it too." The blue cone of energy lanced out from the Negotiator, catching the unconscious figure and drawing him toward the ship. Anakin and Obi-Wan were already moving, striding toward the turbolift with the purposeful pace of men who had learned to expect the impossible. "Did you feel that?" Anakin asked as the doors closed. "I felt something," Obi-Wan admitted. "Not the Force, but not its absence either. As if someone took the Force and translated it into a language we've never heard. Master Yoda needs to know about this." "Master Yoda will know the moment we do," Obi-Wan said with a slight smile. "The Force has a way of ensuring such things." The hangar bay was organized chaos when they arrived. Clone troopers in white armor had formed a perimeter around the unconscious figure, their DC-15 blaster rifles trained but not firing. Medical droids hovered nearby, their sensors scanning cautiously. Captain Rex stood closest, his blue-marked armor reflecting the harsh hangar lights, his helmet tilted as he studied the newcomer. "Generals," Rex acknowledged as they approached. "He's breathing, human or near-human physiology, but his body temperature is elevated beyond normal parameters. No weapons visible, but," he gestured at the figure. "Look at what he's wearing." Obi-Wan knelt beside the young man, barely more than 20 standard years, he estimated, and studied him with the careful eye of someone who had seen too many battlefields. The stranger wore an orange and black jacket that looked more suited for a parade than combat, black pants, and sandals that seemed laughably impractical for warfare. His blonde hair was wild, his face covered in strange whisker-like marks that didn't appear to be tattoos. Most striking were the metallic headband across his forehead bearing a spiral symbol and the absolute absence of visible injuries despite falling through a spatial anomaly. "His clothes aren't burned," Anakin observed, crouching on the other side. Whatever energy surrounded him protected him from hard vacuum. That's not a simple environmental shield. And his life signs are stabilizing, a medical droid reported. However, I am detecting an unusual energy matrix within his cellular structure. It does not correspond to midichlorians, but it appears to serve a similar regulatory function throughout his body. Obi-Wan reached out with the Force, letting his perception wash over the stranger. The sensation was like touching water and finding stone. The shape was familiar, but the substance was entirely foreign. Beneath the surface, he sensed something vast sleeping, something that watched with predatory awareness despite the body's unconsciousness. The young man's eyes snapped open. They were blue, startlingly blue, and filled with immediate confusion and combat readiness. He jerked upright, and suddenly there were 36 blaster rifles pointed at his chest. He froze, taking in the clones, the Jedi, the massive starship hangar around him with its parked gunships and LAAT transports. Whoa, whoa, WHOA. The stranger raised his hands, his voice carrying an accent none of them recognized. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not looking for trouble. Lower your weapons, Obi-Wan commanded calmly, standing and offering his most diplomatic smile. You're safe here. I am General Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Jedi Order. This is General Anakin Skywalker. You're aboard the Republic Star Destroyer Negotiator. Might I ask your name and how you came to be floating in a combat zone? The stranger's eyes darted between them, lingering on their lightsabers with clear recognition of weapons if not their specific function. His hands remained raised, but his posture shifted slightly, weight balanced, ready to move in any direction. A fighter's stance. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said slowly, his voice carrying an edge of disbelief. And I have no idea how I got here. Last thing I remember, I was fighting. He trailed off, his expression darkening with memory. This has to be a genjutsu. Some kind of illusion technique. It has to be. I assure you, this is quite real, Obi-Wan said gently. Though I confess, I don't understand what you mean by genjutsu. Naruto's eyes widened. Then he formed a hand seal, fingers crossed in a configuration that meant nothing to anyone watching, and muttered something under his breath. Nothing happened. He tried again, his frustration mounting. Still nothing. That's impossible, he whispered. I should be able to break any genjutsu, even if someone else cast it. Unless, he looked up at them, at the clones, at the starfighters visible through the atmospheric shield. Where am I? What planet is this? You're in orbit above Christophsis, Anakin said, studying him intently. In the Outer Rim territories. What planet are you from? I'm from, Naruto stopped. His face went pale. I'm from a place you've never heard of. Because this isn't my world at all, is it? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not just far from home. I'm in a completely different universe. The hangar fell silent except for the distant sounds of the ongoing battle and the hum of ship systems. Obi-Wan exchanged a glance with Anakin, who looked as perplexed as he felt. That's quite a claim, Obi-Wan said carefully. Naruto stood up slowly, the clones tracking him with their weapons. He looked at his hands, then at the metal walls around him, then at the two Jedi with their strange laser swords. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of someone who had faced impossible odds before and learned to adapt. Yeah. It's crazy. But I've seen crazier. He lowered his hands and met Obi-Wan's gaze directly. So here's the deal. I don't know how I got here, I don't know how to get home, and I definitely don't understand what's happening. But I'm not your enemy. I'm a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village, and I keep my word. You help me figure this out, I'll help you with whatever you need. That's my ninja way. Anakin's hand hadn't left his lightsaber hilt. And what exactly can a shinobi do? Naruto's grin was sudden and fierce, carrying a confidence that filled the hangar bay like a physical presence. Want me to show you? If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The training room aboard the Negotiator had seen countless sparring sessions between Jedi and clone troopers, but nothing had prepared it for Naruto Uzumaki. Obi-Wan and Anakin stood against the far wall, arms crossed, watching as the young man stretched in the center of the reinforced chamber. Captain Rex and Commander Cody had joined them, their helmets tucked under their arms, curiosity overriding protocol. A handful of other clones lined the observation windows above. Word had spread quickly that the generals were testing the stranger who'd fallen from a hole in space. Standard procedure, Obi-Wan had explained as they'd walked from the hangar. Anyone with unexplained abilities who appears in a war zone gets evaluated. I'm sure you understand. I get it, Naruto had replied, rolling his shoulders. Trust but verify, right? Where I come from, we'd do the same thing. Probably throw me in an interrogation room first, though. We still might, Anakin had said, only half joking. Now, as Naruto finished his stretches, Obi-Wan activated the training remotes, 6 spherical droids that rose from floor panels and began circling the Shinobi with their stun blasters primed. They were set to the lowest setting, enough to sting but not injure. Simple exercise, Obi-Wan called out. Avoid the blaster fire for 60 seconds. The remotes will increase their rate of fire every 10 seconds. Naruto nodded, settling into a stance that looked deceptively relaxed. His hands hung loose at his sides, his weight balanced on the balls of his feet. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed more pronounced under the training room's harsh lights. The remotes opened fire. Blue stun bolts lanced through the air in coordinated patterns, designed to overwhelm even trained Force users. Naruto moved, and Anakin's eyes widened. It wasn't Force-enhanced speed. It was something else, something that made the young man blur between positions without the telltale shimmer of Force augmentation. He twisted between bolts with economy of movement that spoke of thousands of hours of combat training, his body reading trajectories and responding with muscle memory that needed no conscious thought. Impressive, Cody muttered. He moves like a Jedi, but different. No precognition, Obi-Wan observed quietly. He's reading their firing patterns in real time. Pure reaction speed and spatial awareness. The remotes increased their fire rate. Naruto's grin widened. All right, he said, his voice carrying that strange accent. My turn. He slammed his palms together in that unusual hand seal, fingers crossed at the index and middle fingers. Shadow clone jutsu. Smoke exploded across the training room, and when it cleared, there weren't one but 50 Naruto Uzumaki standing in perfect formation, each one solid and apparently real. They moved independently, scattering across the chamber as the confused remotes tried to acquire new targets. What? Rex took a step forward. Are those holograms? No, Anakin said slowly, his connection to the Force probing the phenomenon. They're real. All of them. I can sense something in each one. Not the Force, but some kind of energy sustaining them. Obi-Wan's mind raced through possibilities. Advanced cloning? No, clones couldn't be created that quickly. Droid duplicates? But I sense no mechanical components, he stroked his beard thoughtfully. Fascinating. The Naruto clones didn't just dodge the stun bolts, they counterattacked. 3 of them grabbed a remote each, wrestling the droids out of the air with teamwork that spoke of a shared mind. 2 more clones stood back to back, deflecting bolts with kunai knives that had appeared from seemingly nowhere. The original Naruto, or what appeared to be the original, caught a stun bolt with his bare hand, the energy crackling around his palm before dispersing harmlessly. His body's absorbing the energy, Cody noted. That shouldn't be possible. Nothing about this should be possible, Obi-Wan agreed. Within 30 seconds, all 6 remotes were disabled or captured. The Naruto clones high-fived each other, laughed, then dispersed in puffs of smoke, leaving only the original standing in the center of the room, barely winded. So, Naruto called out, how'd I do? Anakin jumped down from the observation platform, landing with force-cushioned grace. He approached Naruto with the direct intensity that characterized everything he did. Those copies, they weren't illusions. They could touch physical objects. They had mass, presence. How? Shadow clones are solid constructs made of chakra, Naruto explained, pulling out one of his kunai and tossing it casually between his hands. They're real enough to fight, take damage, and when they dispel, their memories and experiences return to me. It's one of my signature techniques. Chakra, Obi-Wan repeated, descending more sedately via the stairs. This energy you mentioned before. It's not the force, yet it allows you to accomplish feats that would require considerable force ability. I don't know what this force thing is, Naruto admitted, but chakra is the energy that flows through every living being where I'm from. It's a combination of physical energy from your cells and spiritual energy from your consciousness. Shinobi train to manipulate it, shape it into techniques called jutsu. Midichlorians are microscopic organisms that allow force sensitivity, Anakin said thoughtfully. They exist in all living cells. What you're describing sounds parallel but distinct. He glanced at Obi-Wan. Could there be another form of energy manipulation we've never encountered? The galaxy is vast, Anakin. We discover new things every day. Obi-Wan turned to Naruto. This chakra of yours, can you demonstrate other applications? Naruto's grin returned. Oh, I can show you way more than that. But first, his expression grew serious. I've answered your questions. Now I need some answers. This war you're fighting, this Republic and Separatists, what's that about? And what are Jedi? It was a fair request. Obi-Wan gestured to the bench along the wall, and they sat while he provided a condensed history, the Galactic Republic that had stood for 1,000 years, the Jedi Order as peacekeepers and guardians, the Separatist movement led by Count Dooku that sought to break away, the clone army created to defend democracy, and the war that now consumed the galaxy. Naruto listened intently, his blue eyes tracking between speakers, his expression growing increasingly troubled. So let me get this straight, he said when Obi-Wan finished. You've got this massive government that's supposed to represent everyone, but a bunch of systems think it's corrupt and broken, so they're trying to leave. And instead of talking it out, everyone's killing each other with clone soldiers and robot armies. It's more complicated than that, Anakin said defensively. The Separatists are being manipulated by the Sith. They're using corporations and greed to. The Sith, Naruto interrupted. You mentioned them before. Evil Force users, right? Dark side? Correct, Obi-Wan confirmed. The ancient enemies of the Jedi. They were thought extinct for a millennium, but they've returned. Their philosophy centers on passion, strength through conflict, and the domination of the weak. They're orchestrating this war for their own purposes. Naruto was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge of something the Jedi hadn't heard before, not anger, but deep, personal understanding of pain. Where I come from, we had something similar. Villages that hated each other, cycles of revenge that went back generations. I grew up as an outcast, hated by my own village for something I had no control over. He touched his stomach unconsciously. I've fought people who wanted to destroy everything because they couldn't escape their pain. I've seen what hatred does when it's allowed to grow. Then you understand why we fight, Anakin said. I understand why you think you fight, Naruto corrected gently. But I also learned something important. Hatred and war don't end until someone chooses to understand the other side. Until someone breaks the cycle. He looked at both Jedi. Has anyone tried talking to these separatist leaders? Really talking, not just negotiating surrender terms. Obi-Wan's expression grew pained. Count Dooku was once a Jedi. My master's master, in fact. He left the order because he believed we'd become servants to a corrupt republic. When we've tried to reason with him, he's responded with violence. He's too far gone to the dark side. Maybe, Naruto said. Or maybe nobody's said the right words yet. He stood, pacing the training room. Look, I don't know your galaxy, I don't know your history. But I know that giving up on people is the worst thing you can do. Where I'm from, I had this teacher, his voice caught slightly. He taught me that a ninja never goes back on his word. My word is that I don't abandon people, even enemies, until I've tried everything to reach them. Rex, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. With respect, sir, that sounds like a good way to get killed. The Separatists would take advantage of that kind of thinking. Maybe, Naruto agreed. But I'm still alive, and I've changed a lot of minds. He turned back to the Jedi. So here's what I'm thinking. You've got a war to fight, and I'm stuck in your universe with no way home that I know of. I need information, I need to understand this galaxy, and I need to figure out if there's any way back to my world. You need, well, what do you need? Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged glances. Finally, Obi-Wan spoke. We need allies, certainly. Warriors who can turn the tide of battles. But more than that, he paused, choosing his words carefully. The Jedi Council will want to meet you. Your abilities, your energy manipulation, it's unprecedented. They'll want to understand it, and understand you. Some may see you as a potential asset. Others may see you as a threat. And what do you see? Naruto asked directly. Obi-Wan smiled slightly. I see a young man far from home who has principles and power in equal measure. That combination is rare and valuable. It's also dangerous, depending on who tries to exploit it. Nobody exploits me, Naruto said flatly. I choose my own path. Then we'll respect that choice, Obi-Wan replied. But know this, in this galaxy, neutrality is almost impossible. Eventually, you'll have to decide where you stand. Naruto looked out through the training room viewport at the stars beyond, at this strange universe that had swallowed him whole. Somewhere out there was a way home, or a new purpose. He'd faced impossible odds before. He'd been the dead last ninja who became Hokage in everything but title. He'd changed the hearts of enemies and saved a world that had once hated him. This was just another challenge. Another chance to prove that Naruto Uzumaki never gave up. Then let's start figuring things out, he said, turning back with that unshakable grin. Take me to this Jedi Council of yours. If they want to meet the shinobi who fell from the sky, I'll show them what the Hidden Leaf Village is all about. Believe it. The phrase meant nothing to anyone in the room, but somehow, they all understood the determination behind it perfectly. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant rose above the cityscape like a monument to millennia of peace and wisdom. Its 5 spires pierced the perpetual haze of speeders and air traffic, and within its halls walked the guardians of the Republic, monks, warriors, and diplomats bound by their connection to the Force. Naruto stood in the council chamber and tried not to let his awe show. The circular room sat at the pinnacle of the temple's tallest tower, its walls lined with seats where 12 Jedi Masters sat in contemplative silence. Sunlight streamed through massive windows that offered a panoramic view of Coruscant's endless urban sprawl. The air hummed with something Naruto couldn't quite name, not chakra, but that other energy these people called the Force. It pressed against his senses like a warm hand, curious and probing. Master Yoda sat directly across from where Naruto stood in the center of the chamber. The diminutive green alien leaned on his Jimmer stick, his ancient eyes, 900 years of wisdom, Obi-Wan had said, fixed on the shinobi with unreadable intensity. Naruto Uzumaki, Yoda said, his voice gravelly but somehow gentle. Welcome to the Jedi Temple, you are. Far from home, Obi-Wan tells us. Speak, you should. Your story, the council would hear. Naruto had faced the Hokage, stood before the leaders of 5 nations, and stared down literal gods. But something about this room, these silent watchers, made his heart pound. He forced himself to stand straight, to meet their gazes without flinching. Thank you for seeing me, he began, and then he told them everything. He explained the elemental nations, the system of hidden villages and shinobi. He described chakra in terms they might understand, an energy born from the union of physical and spiritual strength, shaped by hand seals and willpower into techniques that could reshape reality. He told them about his training, his battles, and the war he'd been fighting when something happened. I was in the middle of combat, Naruto said, his hands clenching at the memory. We were fighting someone dangerous, and I used a technique, a collaboration jutsu with my partner. There was an explosion of chakra, and then, he gestured helplessly. I woke up in space. In your galaxy. This chakra, said Mace Windu, his deep voice cutting through the chamber. The dark-skinned master leaned forward, his expression skeptical. You claim it's separate from the Force. Yet you manipulate energy to create physical constructs, enhance your body beyond normal limits, and sense your surroundings. These are abilities we associate with Force sensitivity. I don't know what to tell you, Naruto replied honestly. I've never heard of the Force before yesterday. Where I come from, everyone has chakra, some people just train to use it better than others. It's not about midichlorians or being sensitive to anything. It's about hard work and determination. Ki-Adi-Mundi, his towering head and serene features imposing, spoke next. Master Kenobi's report indicates you created perfect physical duplicates of yourself. Solid, autonomous, capable of independent action. Such a feat would require immense force power and concentration. Yet you did it casually, as if it were no more difficult than breathing. Shadow clones are just one technique, Naruto said, trying not to sound defensive. I've trained with them since I was 12. They're useful for training, scouting, overwhelming opponents, lots of things. Show us, PLO-kun requested, his mask lending his voice a mechanical quality. The council must understand the nature of your abilities. Naruto glanced at Obi-Wan, who stood beside Anakin near the chamber entrance. The Jedi Master gave him an encouraging nod. All right, Naruto said. He formed the cross-shaped hand seal, focusing his chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 Narutos burst into existence around the chamber, each one solid and grinning. The Jedi Council members stirred, several reaching out with the Force to probe the duplicates. Naruto could feel their attention like invisible fingers trying to understand what they were touching. Fascinating, Shakti murmured, her head-tails shifting as she studied the clones. They register as living beings in the Force, yet they're somehow hollow. Echoes of the original. They're solid constructs made of chakra, one of the Narutos explained. When they get hit hard enough or I release the technique, they disperse and their memories return to me. Demonstrate, Yoda requested. One of the clones walked up to Master Windu and bowed respectfully. If you don't mind, Master Jedi. At Windu's nod, the clone dispelled itself in a puff of smoke. Naruto gasped as the clone's memories flooded back, the sensation of standing close to Windu, the overwhelming presence of his Force aura, the disciplined power held in careful check. It was like standing near a lightning storm that chose not to strike. That's intense, Naruto said, blinking. Your energy is really something else. And you gain that clones experience instantaneously, Obi-Wan observed. The tactical applications alone. It's how I trained so fast, Naruto admitted, dispelling the other clones. I could practice with 100 clones and get 100 times the experience. It's also really draining if I'm not careful. Kit Fisto, his tentacles swaying, smiled slightly. A weapon, a training tool, and a tactical advantage all in one. Your masters trained you well. I had a lot of help, Naruto said quietly. Some of the best teachers anyone could ask for. Yoda's ears twitched. Humble, you are. Yet powerful, clearly. Questions, the council has. He paused, his gaze seeming to pierce through Naruto's very soul. Darkness within you, we sense. Anger. Pain. Yet to the dark side, you have not fallen. How? Naruto tensed. He'd known this was coming. These Jedi could sense emotions, read people's hearts through this force of theirs. And inside him, always, was Kurama. The Nine-Tails had been quiet since arriving in this universe, confused and watchful, but his presence was undeniable. "There's something inside me," Naruto said slowly. "Where I come from, they're called tailed beasts, creatures of pure chakra sealed inside hosts. I have the 9 tails, Kurama, sealed in my body. He's powerful. Dangerous. For most of my life, people feared me because of him." The council chamber went very still. "A creature of dark energy, sealed within you," Mace Windu said, his hand drifting toward his lightsaber. "That sounds like a recipe for corruption." "It would be," Naruto agreed, "if Kurama and I were still enemies. But we're not. We're partners now. Friends. He has his own mind, his own will. Yeah, he's made of chakra that can be destructive, but he's not evil. He's just angry about being sealed for so long. And I don't blame him. Commune with this entity, can you?" Yoda asked. Naruto closed his eyes, reaching inward to the mental space where Kurama resided. In his mind's eye, he saw the massive fox behind the broken seal gate, 9 tails swishing with agitation. "These force users are nosy," Kurama's voice rumbled through their shared consciousness. "They keep poking at me with their energy. It's annoying." "Can you feel the force?" Naruto asked silently. "I feel something. It's everywhere here, woven into everything. It's different from natural energy, different from chakra. Like a parallel current. I don't like it. It confuses my senses. But it's not hurting you." "No. Just uncomfortable. Like wearing clothes that don't quite fit." Kurama's presence shifted, becoming more focused. "These Jedi, be careful, Naruto. They have power, but they're rigid. I can sense it. They follow rules, suppress emotions. That kind of thinking leads to breaking points." "I'll be careful," Naruto promised, opening his eyes. "Kurama says this force energy is affecting him," Naruto reported. "Making him uncomfortable. But he's not hostile. He's just wary." "As well he should be," Mace Windu said. "An entity of dark power." "He's not dark." Naruto interrupted, his voice sharp. Several council members straightened. "Sorry, but I'm tired of people judging Kurama without knowing him. Yeah, he's powerful. Yeah, he's dangerous if you make him angry. But he's also saved my life more times than I can count. He's my friend. And where I come from, you don't abandon your friends just because other people are afraid of them." The silence that followed was heavy. Anakin, standing by the entrance, felt a strange resonance with Naruto's words. How many times had the council questioned his attachments, his emotions, his refusal to simply let go of the people he cared about? Yoda's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Loyalty, you value. Bonds, you cherish. Admirable, these traits are. But careful, you must be. The path to the dark side, paved with good intentions, it often is." "I've heard that before," Naruto said. "Different words, same meaning. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?" He shook his head. "But I've also seen what happens when you don't fight for the people you care about. When you give up on bonds because they're inconvenient or dangerous. That's not strength. That's cowardice. The Jedi Code teaches us to avoid attachment," Ki-Adi-Mundi said sternly. "Attachment leads to fear of loss. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to suffering." "Yeah, I get the chain," Naruto interrupted again. "But here's what I don't get, how can you protect people if you don't care about them? How can you fight for something if you're not emotionally invested in it? Where I come from, our strongest techniques come from our bonds. Our power grows from protecting the people we love." "An interesting philosophy," Obi-Wan said diplomatically, stepping forward. Though perhaps one that would be better discussed at length rather than debated now. He looked at the council. The question before us is what to do with Naruto. He's demonstrated no hostile intent, considerable power, and a willingness to cooperate. I propose we allow him to remain as a guest of the Order while we investigate his claims and search for a way to return him home. And if no way exists? Shakti asked. Then we deal with that when the time comes, Obi-Wan replied. Yoda was silent for a long moment, his eyes closed in contemplation. When he opened them, they held a weight of decision. Guest of the temple, Naruto Uzumaki may be. But tested, he must be. Training sessions with Master Skywalker and Master Kenobi, he will attend. Observe him, we will. Learn about each other, we must. And if I refuse? Naruto asked quietly. Then free to leave, you are, Yoda said simply. But alone in a strange galaxy, you would be. Enemies you do not know, in a war you do not understand. Help we offer. Wisdom we share. But trust, earned it must be. On both sides. Naruto considered this. He could sense the genuine offer beneath the caution. These Jedi weren't his enemies, they were just careful, protecting something they'd built over 1,000 years. He could respect that. All right, he said. I'll train with them. Learn about the Force, teach you about chakra if you want. But I'm not joining your order, and I'm not fighting your war until I understand it better. Deal? Deal, Mace Windu said, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely pleased with the arrangement. As the council dismissed them, Naruto followed Obi-Wan and Anakin out of the chamber. Behind them, the Jedi Masters began discussing in low tones what this newcomer might mean for the war, for the Order, and for the balance of the Force itself. None of them yet realized that Naruto Uzumaki's arrival had already begun to shift that balance in ways they couldn't predict. And in the shadows of Coruscant, in an office where a chancellor plotted the fall of the Jedi Order, Darth Sidious felt a disturbance in the Force, something new, something unaccounted for. Something that would need to be dealt with. The training grounds beneath the Jedi Temple were vast, designed to accommodate everything from lightsaber duels to Force meditation exercises. Anakin had chosen the largest arena, a circular platform surrounded by observation balconies where young Padawans gathered to watch their elders practice. Today, those balconies were packed. Word had spread through the temple like wildfire, the stranger from another universe was training with General Skywalker. Younglings pressed against the railings, their masters standing behind them with expressions of carefully maintained neutrality that didn't quite hide their curiosity. Naruto stood on one side of the platform, rolling his shoulders and stretching his legs. Across from him, Anakin ignited his lightsaber, the blue blade humming to life with that distinctive snap hiss that had become the sound of the Jedi Order itself. Standard sparring rules, Anakin called out. First to yield or first to land 3 solid hits. I'll keep my blade on training mode, it'll sting if it connects, but it won't cut. Appreciate that, Naruto said, pulling a 3-pronged kunai from his pouch. Because I really don't want to find out what a laser sword does to flesh. Plasma blade, Anakin corrected with a slight grin. And you're about to find out what it does to overconfidence. Obi-Wan stood at the platform's edge, arms crossed, his expression caught between amusement and concern. He'd seen Anakin spar countless times, watched him cut through battle droids and duel with Separatist warriors. But he'd also seen what Naruto could do with those shadow clones. This would be educational for both of them. Begin, Obi-Wan called. Anakin moved first, closing the distance with Force-enhanced speed. His lightsaber came in low, a testing strike meant to gauge Naruto's reflexes. The Shinobi twisted aside, the blue blade passing within inches of his jacket, and countered with the kunai in a backhand slash. Anakin parried effortlessly, the weapons clashing with a sharp ring of metal on plasma. He pressed forward with a combination, high, low, thrust, each movement flowing into the next with the practiced grace of Form V lightsaber combat. Naruto gave ground, blocking and dodging, his blue eyes tracking the blade's path with intense focus. "You're fast," Anakin said, genuinely impressed. "But you're fighting defensively. That won't win this." "Just getting warmed up," Naruto replied, and suddenly there were 5 of him. The shadow clones spread out instantly, surrounding Anakin in a loose circle. The Jedi's eyes widened slightly, his connection to the Force told him all 5 were real, all 5 were threats. He spun, his lightsaber becoming a wheel of blue light as he defended against attacks from multiple angles. One clone came in high with a kunai. Another went low, trying to sweep Anakin's legs. A third threw shuriken from range. Anakin's response was pure instinct honed by years of warfare. He force-pushed the leg sweeper away, deflected the shuriken with his blade, and caught the high-attacking clone's wrist, using the momentum to throw him into another clone. Both dispelled in puffs of smoke. "Interesting," Anakin muttered, feeling the strange non-force energy dissipate. "They're solid until they're not." The remaining 3 Narutos regrouped, and Anakin felt them coordinating without words, like they shared one mind across 3 bodies. Because, he realized, they did. They attacked in perfect synchronization. High, middle, low, 3 angles at once, exploiting the fact that Anakin had only one lightsaber. He managed to parry the high strike, dodged the low sweep, but the middle clone landed a solid punch to his ribs that made him grunt and stagger back. "One hit," Obi-Wan called out. "Advantage Naruto." Anakin's competitive nature flared. He reached out with the Force and pushed, a wave of telekinetic energy that should have sent all 3 clones tumbling. 2 of them flew backward and dispelled on impact with the platform. But the third, the original, Anakin's instincts told him, somehow held his ground, his feet sliding across the floor but not leaving it. "What?" Anakin started. "Chakra control," Naruto explained, and Anakin could see it now, a faint shimmer around the shinobi's feet where they connected to the ground. "I'm anchoring myself with chakra. Your force push is strong, but I can counter it if I'm ready." "Then let's see you counter this," Anakin said, and launched himself forward with enhanced speed. Their weapons met in a flurry of strikes that drew gasps from the watching Padawans. Anakin's lightsaber work was textbook gems, so powerful, aggressive, each strike meant to overwhelm the opponent through superior strength and speed. But Naruto wasn't fighting like any opponent Anakin had faced. His movements were unpredictable, borrowing from a combat style the Jedi had never encountered. He'd feint high and go low, use his kunai to redirect rather than block directly, and his footwork was constantly shifting, making him hard to pin down. "You're good," Naruto admitted, breathing harder now. "Really good. But I've got more tricks." He formed hand seals mid-combat. How he managed it while dodging lightsaber strikes, Obi-Wan couldn't fathom, and suddenly the air around them shifted. Wind style, gale palm. A concentrated blast of wind erupted from Naruto's palms, strong enough to force Anakin to dig in with the Force to avoid being blown backward. His lightsaber flickered as the wind howled around him, and in that moment of distraction, Naruto closed the distance with pure speed. The kunai came in at Anakin's throat, stopped just short of touching skin. 2 hits, Obi-Wan announced. Anakin's expression shifted from surprise to respect. "You're full of surprises." "That's what my senseis always said," Naruto replied, backing off and resetting his stance. "One more hit each. You ready?" "Oh, I'm ready," Anakin said, and this time when he attacked, he held nothing back. The lightsaber became a blur of blue plasma, strikes coming faster than most eyes could follow. Anakin augmented his speed with the Force, pushed his reflexes to their limits, and fought with the intensity that had made him a legend during the Clone Wars. He was done testing, this was a real fight now. Naruto created a dozen shadow clones in response. They swarmed Anakin from every angle, forcing him to defend and counter simultaneously. His lightsaber cut through 2 clones, dispelling them. He force-pushed 3 more into each other. His mechanical hand caught a kunai thrust aimed at his back, crushing the weapon. But there were too many angles, too many attacks. A clone landed a solid kick to Anakin's shoulder. Another scored a punch to his midsection. The Jedi spun, using the Force to create space, but Naruto, the original, was already there, moving through his own clones like they were mist. Their eyes met for half a heartbeat. Then Naruto's hand began to glow with swirling blue chakra, condensed into a sphere that roared with barely contained power. Rasengan. The sphere drove toward Anakin's chest. The Jedi's lightsaber came up to block, and when the Rasengan met the plasma blade, something unexpected happened. The chakra sphere didn't dispel. It ground against the lightsaber's energy field, the two powers warring for dominance. Sparks of blue and white energy scattered across the platform. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the collision. Anakin gritted his teeth, feeling the raw power behind the technique. It was like trying to block a force push and a lightsaber strike simultaneously. The kinetic energy wanted to drive him back while the rotational force tried to shred his defense. Interesting weapon, Naruto said through clenched teeth, his arm trembling with the effort of maintaining the Rasengan against resistance. But can it handle this? He poured more chakra into the sphere. The Rasengan grew larger, its rotation faster, and suddenly Anakin's lightsaber was forced aside. The spinning chakra sphere connected with his chest, pulling its power at the last possible instant so it only pushed rather than tore. Anakin flew backward, hit the platform hard, and slid to a stop near Obi-Wan's feet. 3 hits, Obi-Wan said quietly. Match to Naruto. The silence in the training ground lasted exactly 2 seconds before the watching Padawans erupted in excited chatter. A stranger from another universe had just bested one of the Order's greatest warriors, and Anakin Skywalker was smiling. He stood up, rubbing his chest where the Rasengan had connected. That last technique, what was it? My other signature move, Naruto said, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. The Rasengan. Took me years to master. It's compressed, rotating chakra that grinds into whatever it touches. Usually, it's a lot more destructive. I noticed you held back, Anakin said, and there was genuine appreciation in his voice. Thank you for that. We're sparring, not trying to kill each other, Naruto replied. Besides, you held back too. I could tell. That force power of yours, you've got way more than you showed. True, Obi-Wan interjected, approaching them both. But we've learned what we needed to learn. Naruto, your combat abilities are exceptional. Your techniques are versatile, your tactical thinking is sound, and your chakra control is remarkably precise. Thanks, Naruto said, then his expression grew more serious. But I noticed something during the fight. Your force, when Anakin used it to push me, I felt it. It's different from chakra, but there were moments when they almost resonated. Like they recognized each other. Obi-Wan and Anakin exchanged glances. They'd felt it too, in the moment when the Rasengan met the lightsaber, there had been something. A harmony, or perhaps a discord, between the two energies. The Force connects all living things, Obi-Wan said thoughtfully. Perhaps your chakra, being also derived from living energy, has some fundamental connection to it. Or perhaps. Master Kenobi, a clone trooper interrupted, jogging up to the platform. You have an urgent transmission from the Jedi Council. They're requesting your presence, and Naruto Uzumaki says well. Both of us? Naruto asked. What's happened? Anakin demanded. The trooper's expression was grim. A Separatist fleet has been detected in the Ryloth system. They're launching a full-scale invasion. The Council wants to deploy you immediately. He looked at Naruto. And they're requesting that the visitor accompany you as an observer. Naruto's heart sank. He'd been in this universe for less than 2 days, and already he was being pulled into their war. But as he looked at Anakin and Obi-Wan, men who had treated him with respect and fairness, and thought about the clone troopers he'd met, the Padawans watching from above, he realized something. These weren't just strangers in a foreign galaxy. They were people fighting for something they believed in. People who would die if he stood aside. And Naruto Uzumaki had never been good at standing aside. An observer, he said quietly. What if I want to do more than observe? Obi-Wan studied him carefully. The Separatist forces will have battle droids, thousands of them. Vulture droid starfighters, droid tanks, and weapons designed to kill. This isn't a sparring match, Naruto. This is war. Real war, with real casualties. I know what war is, Naruto said, his voice hardening. I've fought in one. Lost people I cared about. Made choices I still have nightmares about. He met Obi-Wan's eyes. But I also know that running away when people need help isn't an option. Not for me. The council won't officially sanction your involvement, Anakin warned. If you fight, you do so at your own risk. That's fine, Naruto said. I'm used to being the wild card nobody expects. Above them, in the observation balconies, the young Padawans watched the stranger from another world make his choice. Some would remember this moment years later, when the Clone Wars ended and the galaxy changed forever. They would remember the shinobi with whisker marks who chose to fight not because he had to, but because leaving people to suffer alone wasn't in his nature. Then we leave within the hour, Obi-Wan said. Ryloth is a beautiful world inhabited by the Twi'lek people. The Separatists will show them no mercy. If you're going to fight, be prepared for what you might see. I'm ready, Naruto said, even though part of him knew he wasn't. How could anyone be ready for a war that spanned an entire galaxy? But as Kurama stirred inside him, lending his strength and resolve, Naruto straightened his shoulders and followed the Jedi from the training grounds. His first real battle in the Star Wars universe was about to begin. The negotiator dropped out of hyperspace above Ryloth, and Naruto's breath caught. The planet below was beautiful, arid mountains painted in shades of rust and amber, connected by winding valleys where cities of pale stone nestled against cliffsides. But beauty was marred by war. Separatist frigates hung in orbit like predators, their turbolasers raining fire on the surface. Plumes of smoke rose from burning settlements, visible even from space. The blockades heavier than intelligence reported, Admiral Yularen announced from the bridge. 3 Providence-class destroyers, support frigates, and what looks like 2 full wings of vulture droids. Naruto stood beside Obi-Wan and Anakin at the tactical display, watching red icons multiply across the holographic projection. Each icon represented a ship full of weapons aimed at the planet below. The Twi'lek capital of Lesu is under siege, Obi-Wan explained, gesturing to a location on the planet's surface. Separatist ground forces are advancing through the valleys. If they take the city, they'll enslave the population. The Separatists have a profitable business in Twi'lek slaves. Slaves. Naruto's voice went cold. You're telling me they're invading to capture people and sell them? The Techno-Union profits from it, Anakin said, his own anger barely contained. They use Twi'lek labor in their factories. It's one of the many reasons this war needs to end. Naruto's hands clenched. In his world, he'd been treated like a monster, feared and hated, but never had he encountered an entire system built on the buying and selling of people. The casual cruelty of it made Kurama growl in the back of his mind. These Separatists are starting to annoy me, the Nine-Tails rumbled. If you're going to fight, don't hold back on my account. General Skywalker, Commander Ahsoka Tano said, striding onto the bridge. The young Togruta Padawan had been briefed about Naruto but was seeing him in person for the first time. Her montrals tilted slightly as she studied him with barely concealed curiosity. The gunships are prepped for deployment. We can have boots on the ground in 20 minutes. Good, Anakin said. We'll lead the assault on the Eastern Valley. Obi-Wan, you take the western approach with the 212th. We'll pincer them against the capital. And our observer? Obi-Wan asked, nodding toward Naruto. I'll take him with my squad, Anakin decided. He wants to see what real combat looks like, he'll get a front row seat. I don't need a babysitter, Naruto protested. You need someone who knows the terrain and the enemy, Anakin countered. And like it or not, you're a complete rookie when it comes to galactic warfare. Stick with me, follow orders, and maybe you'll live long enough to see the sunset. Naruto wanted to argue, but Obi-Wan's hand on his shoulder stopped him. Anakin's right. Pride won't help you survive down there. Learn from this battle. The next one, perhaps you'll have earned the freedom to operate independently. It rankled, but Naruto nodded. He'd been the dead last ninja once, ignored and mocked by everyone. He'd learned to swallow his pride and train until he proved himself. This was no different. 20 minutes later, he was strapped into a LAAT gunship alongside Captain Rex, Commander Ahsoka, and a squad of clone troopers from the 501st Legion. The gunship's engines roared as it detached from the Negotiator, joining a formation of identical vessels streaking toward Ryloth's surface. First combat drop? Rex asked, his voice filtered through his helmet comm. First space combat drop, Naruto replied, gripping the safety harness as the gunship shook from atmospheric entry. I've jumped out of plenty of things, but never from orbit. You'll get used to it, Ahsoka said with a grin that was probably meant to be reassuring. The trick is not looking down until you're already on the ground. The gunship lurched as anti-aircraft fire exploded nearby. Red tracer fire streaked past the viewports, and Naruto heard the distinctive thunk-thunk-thunk of impacts against the hull. Taking fire, the pilot announced. Vulture droids inbound, 3 o'clock. Through the viewport, Naruto saw them, droid starfighters with insectoid profiles, their laser cannons blazing as they strafed the Republic gunships. One LAAT took a direct hit and spiraled away trailing smoke and flame. Naruto watched it disappear into the clouds, not knowing if the crew survived. This is insane, he muttered. This is Tuesday, Rex replied calmly, checking his DC-15 blaster rifle. The gunship dropped fast, dodging and weaving through fire. Naruto's stomach lurched with every maneuver, but he kept his eyes open, watching everything. The valley below was a war zone, clone troopers in white armor advancing behind AT walkers, their turbolasers exchanging fire with Separatist AATs and columns of battle droids. Explosions carved craters in the rust-colored earth, and bodies, both clone and droid, littered the landscape. 30 seconds to LZ, the pilot called. Weapons hot, Anakin ordered, igniting his lightsaber. The blue blade cast strange shadows in the gunship's interior. Rex, standard deployment. Ahsoka, you're with me on point. Naruto. I know. Stay close, don't die, try not to mess anything up. I was going to say, watch our backs, but yours works too, Anakin said with a slight smirk. The gunship's doors blasted open, and suddenly they were 20 feet above the ground, the ramp extending. Without hesitation, Anakin and Ahsoka leaped out, using the Force to cushion their landing. Rex and his troopers followed, rappelling down on cables and hitting the ground in formation. Naruto jumped last, channeling chakra to his legs to absorb the impact. He landed hard but upright, kunai already in hand, and immediately the world became chaos. Blaster bolts filled the air, red from the droids, blue from the clones. The sound was overwhelming, a constant pew-pew-pew mixed with explosions and shouted orders. B-1 battle droids advanced in neat lines, their vocabulator voices crying, "Roger, Roger," even as clone fire cut them down. But for every droid that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. Naruto, on me. Anakin shouted, deflecting blaster bolts with his lightsaber as he advanced. Ahsoka moved beside him, her green blade a mirror of his movements, the 2 Jedi flowing through the battle like dancers performing a deadly routine. Naruto ran to catch up, and a battle droid turned its photoreceptors toward him. Halt. Identify yourself or be. Naruto's kunai took it through the optical sensor. The droid staggered, and Naruto's follow-up kick separated its head from its body. The machine collapsed in a heap of sparking metal. Not bad, Rex commented, putting 3 bolts through a super battle droid's chest. But save your energy. There's a lot more where that came from. He wasn't exaggerating. Naruto's enhanced senses, honed through years of combat, picked up the enemy positions all around them. Dozens of droids. Hundreds. They just kept coming, pouring from the Separatist drop ships that hovered over the valley like mechanical locusts. This is different from fighting people, Naruto said, forming the hand seal for his signature technique. These things don't feel pain, don't get scared, don't surrender. Now you're getting it, Ahsoka replied, using the Force to hurl a disabled droid into 3 others. It's not about intimidation. It's about pure attrition. Then let's even the odds. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 50 Narutos burst into existence across the battlefield. The clone troopers nearest to them stumbled in surprise, nearly shooting before Rex's shout stopped them. Hold fire. Those are friendlies. The Naruto clones scattered, each one attacking with kunai, fists, and tactical coordination that made them far more effective than their numbers alone suggested. They swarmed battle droid positions, using teamwork to dismantle the mechanical soldiers in ways the droid's programming couldn't predict. One clone would distract while another struck from behind. 3 would combine to topple a super battle droid, then move on to the next target. Impressive, Anakin admitted, cutting through a droideca's shields. But don't overextend. Those clones might be expendable, but you're not. A massive explosion rocked the valley as an AAT tank focused fire on their position. The blast vaporized 3 Naruto clones and sent the real one tumbling behind a rocky outcrop. His ears rang, his vision swam, and suddenly he understood what Anakin meant. This wasn't a duel between warriors. This was industrial-scale slaughter, weapons designed to kill efficiently and without discrimination. You alright? Rex asked, pulling him to cover as turbolaser fire chewed the ground they just vacated. Yeah, Naruto coughed. That tank needs to go. Agreed. Got any ideas? Naruto peered around the rock at the AAT rolling toward them, its main cannon tracking for another shot. In his mind, he could hear his teacher's voices, Kakashi-sensei explaining tactics, Jiraiya-sensei demonstrating that sometimes the direct approach was the only approach, Tsunade-bachan reminding him that force applied precisely could topple anything. I've got an idea, Naruto said. But I need covering fire. You've got it, Rex replied, then spoke into his comm, all units, focus fire on the AAT. Keep it distracted. Clone troopers shifted their aim, blue bolts hammering against the tank's armor. It wouldn't penetrate, the AAT's shields were too strong, but it got the tank's attention. Its turret swiveled toward the concentrated fire, tracking for targets. Naruto created 3 shadow clones and sent them running in different directions. The tank's automated targeting systems tried to track all 4, its processing confused by identical signatures. In that moment of hesitation, Naruto made his move. He sprinted directly at the tank, channeling chakra to his legs for speed. The distance closed in heartbeats. A super battle droid tried to intercept, but Ahsoka's thrown lightsaber cut it in half. The AAT's turret began to swivel back toward him, but it was too slow. Naruto leaped, landing on the tank's hull. His hand came up, chakra swirling into that familiar blue sphere. Rasengan. He drove it into the tank's thinner top armor. The rotating chakra sphere ground through durasteel plating like paper, punching through to the internal mechanisms. Sparks flew. Something inside the tank exploded. The AAT shuddered, smoke pouring from its joints, and then the main reactor went critical. Jump! Rex shouted. Naruto kicked off hard, using chakra to enhance the leap. He cleared 15 feet before the tank detonated in a fireball that sent shrapnel whistling through the air. He hit the ground rolling, came up with his jacket singed but otherwise intact, and found Anakin staring at him with something like respect. That, the Jedi said, was reckless, dangerous, and completely insane. But it worked, Naruto pointed out. But it worked, Anakin agreed with a grin. Stick with us, kid. You might actually survive this war. The battle raged on, but the tide had turned. With the AAT destroyed and Naruto's clones creating chaos in the droid formations, the Republic forces pushed forward. They retook the valley meter by bloody meter, until finally, the remaining Separatist forces began a fighting retreat. As the sun set over Ryloth, painting the mountains in shades of orange and gold that reminded Naruto painfully of home, he stood among the clone troopers and Jedi, breathing hard, covered in dust and scorch marks. He'd survived his first galactic battle. But as he looked at the bodies of clone troopers being loaded onto medical transports, at the smoke still rising from destroyed positions, he understood the true cost of this war. And somewhere deep inside, Kurama whispered a warning. That Sith you mentioned, the one called Sidious, he's watching. I can feel it. He knows about you now, Naruto. And he's very, very interested. The Republic forward base on Ryloth was a hastily constructed facility of prefabricated structures and anti-aircraft batteries, carved into the relative safety of a canyon that protected it from orbital bombardment. Clone troopers moved between buildings in organized patterns, their white armor streaked with the rust-colored dust of the planet. Medical tents overflowed with wounded, and the smell of bacta and burned plastoid hung heavy in the air. Naruto sat outside the command tent, his orange jacket draped over a supply crate beside him. His body ached in ways he hadn't experienced since his hardest training sessions, not from injury, but from the sustained combat and the unfamiliar rhythm of galactic warfare. Around him, clone troopers from the 501st worked through their post-battle routines, checking equipment and seeing to their wounded brothers. Here. Naruto looked up to find Captain Rex offering him a canteen. The clone's helmet was off, revealing a face that was identical to every other clone yet somehow uniquely his own. There was a weariness in Rex's eyes that Naruto recognized, the look of someone who'd seen too much death. Thanks, Naruto said, taking the canteen and drinking deeply. The water was warm and tasted faintly metallic, but it was the best thing he'd had in hours. Rex sat down beside him with a grunt, his armor scraping against the crate. For a moment, they watched the organized chaos of the base in comfortable silence. You fought well today, Rex said finally. Those clone techniques of yours, no offense to the name, saved lives. My men's lives. I'm glad I could help, Naruto replied. But I've got to ask, how do you do this? Fight every day knowing that those droids just keep coming? That there's always another battle, another planet? Rex was quiet for a long moment, his hands resting on his knees. Because if we don't, who will? The Jedi can't be everywhere. The Republic's regular forces are spread thin. We were created for this, to be the Republic's shield. To stand between civilians and the people who'd hurt them. But you didn't choose it, Naruto said quietly. You were made for war. Does that make our choice to fight mean less? Rex challenged, but there was no anger in his voice, only genuine curiosity. We may have been created in a lab, grown faster than natural humans, trained from childhood to be soldiers. But every day, I choose to put on this armor. Every battle, I choose to stand with my brothers. That's real, even if our beginning wasn't. Naruto thought about that. About the 9 tails sealed inside him without his consent, about being hated for something he didn't choose. But he'd taken that burden and made it his own, transformed it from a curse into strength. Maybe Rex and his brothers had done something similar. You're right, Naruto admitted. Sorry. I didn't mean to. No offense taken, Rex interrupted. You ask good questions. Better than most Natborns. He used the clone slang for naturally born humans without malice. Most people don't think about what it means to be us. They just see the armor and feel safer. Well, for what it's worth, I see people, Naruto said. People who chose to be heroes. Rex's expression softened slightly. You're alright, Uzumaki. Even if you dress like a traffic beacon. Naruto laughed, the sound feeling strange after the day's violence. My best friend used to say the same thing. Called my taste in clothes aggressively orange. Smart friend. Their conversation was interrupted by Ahsoka approaching, her mantrals casting long shadows in the setting sun. She looked tired but uninjured, her lightsaber hanging from her belt. Naruto, Master Skywalker wants to see you in the command tent. We've got a situation. Naruto stood, pulling his jacket back on despite the heat. What kind of situation? The kind where someone important wants to talk to you, Ahsoka said cryptically. And not just anyone. Count Dooku himself. The command tent's interior was dominated by a holographic projector displaying tactical data from across Ryloth. Anakin and Obi-Wan stood before it, their expressions grim. Commander Cody was there as well, along with several other officers. But what drew Naruto's attention was the life-sized holographic figure standing in the center of the room. Count Dooku appeared as a tall, elegant man with a silver beard and aristocratic bearing. He wore dark robes that spoke of wealth and power, and his eyes, even transmitted through hologram, held a calculating intelligence that made Naruto's instincts scream warnings. Ah, Dooku said, his cultured voice filling the tent. The mysterious stranger from another universe. How fortunate that you've survived your first taste of our little war. Count Dooku, Obi-Wan said coolly. To what do we owe this unexpected communication? Come to discuss your surrender. Ever the optimist, Kenobi. Dooku's smile was thin. No, I contact you because of him. He gestured toward Naruto. This young man who appeared from a spatial anomaly, wielding powers that are not the Force. Surely you realize how interesting that is. I'm not interested in being interesting to you, Naruto said flatly. How refreshingly direct, Dooku replied. Tell me, Naruto Uzumaki, have the Jedi explained their role in this war? How they've become generals in the Republic's army, leading clone slaves into battle to preserve a corrupt government. They're not slaves, Naruto shot back. They choose to fight. Do they? Were they given a choice in their creation? In their accelerated aging? In their genetic programming that makes them loyal unto death? Dooku's voice was reasonable, persuasive. The Jedi claim to serve the light, yet they perpetuate a system that creates sentient beings solely to die in war. Naruto felt the words hit harder than he'd like. He'd thought the same thing when he first learned about the clones. But he'd also seen Rex and his brothers, seen their pride and their choices. The Separatists use slaves too, Anakin interjected harshly. Twi'lek slaves, taken by force and sold. Don't pretend you have the moral high ground. The Techno-Union's practices are, regrettable, Dooku admitted with a slight frown. But necessary evils in war. The Separatist alliance fights for freedom from Republic corruption and Jedi manipulation. Surely, Naruto, you can understand the desire to break free from those who would control you. He's good, Kurama growled in Naruto's mind. Very good. He takes truths and twists them just enough to serve his purpose. Like the worst kind of politician. I understand wanting freedom, Naruto said carefully. But I also know that good intentions don't excuse bad actions. If your cause is just, why do you serve the Sith? The tent went very quiet. Dooku's holographic expression flickered with something, surprise. Respect. Perceptive, the Count said. Yes, I was trained as a Sith Lord. But I used that power to achieve what the Jedi could not, real change. The Republic is rotten to its core, boy. The Jedi are blind to it, bound by their dogma and their service to politicians who don't deserve their loyalty. And your solution is war? Naruto demanded. Killing people who just want to live their lives. Destroying cities. That's not freedom, that's just replacing one tyrant with another. Sometimes the old must be burned away before the new can grow, Dooku replied. A lesson I imagine you learned in your own world's conflicts. Naruto's hands clenched. He thought about the Shinobi Wars, about Madara and Obito and their plans to trap the world in infinite genjutsu. They'd believed they were bringing peace too, ending suffering through control. I've met people like you before, Naruto said quietly. People who thought they could force the world to be better through power. They were wrong. You're wrong. Real peace doesn't come from conquering or controlling people. It comes from understanding them. How idealistic, Dooku said, but there was an edge to his voice now. I wonder how long you'll maintain that idealism after you see more of this war. After you lose comrades. After you realize the Jedi are using you just as they used their clone army. That's enough, Obi-Wan said firmly. If you have an actual purpose for this communication beyond attempting to sway our ally, state it. Otherwise, we have a battle to win. Dooku's expression hardened. Very well. I offer Naruto Uzumaki a choice. Join the Separatist cause. We can offer you resources to find your way home, knowledge of dimensional phenomena that the Jedi keep hidden in their archives, and the freedom to operate as you see fit without Jedi oversight. And if I refuse? Naruto asked. Then you remain a combatant in a war you don't understand, fighting for a side that will ultimately lose. The Republic is dying, boy. When it falls, those who stood with it will fall as well. Dooku paused. I sense great power in you. Power that could tip the scales of this conflict. Choose wisely which scales you wish to tip. The hologram flickered and died, leaving the tent in sudden silence. Anakin rounded on Naruto immediately. You're not actually considering. Of course not, Naruto interrupted. That guy reeks of manipulation. He's like every politician I've ever met who said they wanted peace while preparing for war. But he wasn't entirely wrong, Obi-Wan said quietly, surprising everyone. The Republic does have flaws. Deep ones. The Jedi Order's role in this war is complicated. We've become something we never intended to be. Master, Ahsoka started. No, it's important he understands, Obi-Wan continued, turning to Naruto. We're not perfect. Our cause isn't pure. We fight because the alternative, allowing the Sith to control the galaxy, is worse. But that doesn't make every decision we've made right. At least you admit it, Naruto said. Where I come from, the villages did terrible things in the name of protecting their people. Created child soldiers. Assassinated rivals. Perpetuated cycles of hatred. But some of us chose to be better, to break those cycles. That's all you can do, acknowledge the flaws and try to fix them. Wise words from someone so young, Obi-Wan observed. I had good teachers, Naruto replied. Then, more seriously, but Dooku mentioned something important. He said the Jedi have archives about dimensional phenomena. Is that true? Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged glances. The temple archives contain knowledge from 10,000 years of Jedi history, Obi-Wan admitted. Including records of unusual force phenomena. Some ancient texts describe rifts in spacetime, though they're considered theoretical. Could they help me get home? Possibly, Obi-Wan said. When this battle is concluded and we return to Coruscant, I'll arrange for you to access the archives. You have my word. Before Naruto could respond, alarms shrieked across the base. Red emergency lights bathed the tent in crimson. Separatist counterattack, Cody reported, reading data streaming across his wrist display. Multiple Separatist drop ships inbound, heavy armor support. They're going for the capital while we're repositioned here. It's a feint, Anakin said immediately. Dooku's communication was a distraction. He wanted us focused here while he moved his real forces. Then we need to move, Ahsoka said. If Lesu falls, the Twi'leks will be slaughtered or enslaved, Obi-Wan finished grimly. He turned to Naruto. This is your chance to back out. Return to the negotiator, stay out of harm's way. No one would blame you. Naruto thought about the clone troopers he'd fought beside, about Rex choosing to be a hero every day despite his creation. He thought about the Twi'lek civilians he hadn't met yet but who deserved to live free. And he thought about the Shinobi way, that a ninja never abandons their mission, never leaves their comrades behind. "I'm going," he said simply. "Those people need help. That's all that matters." Anakin clapped him on the shoulder. "Then let's move. We've got a city to save and a Sith Lord to disappoint." As they rushed from the command tent toward the waiting gunships, Naruto felt Kurama's presence surge within him. "The real battle's coming, Kit. I can feel it. That Dooku, he's powerful. More powerful than anyone you've faced in this galaxy so far. Don't underestimate him." "I won't," Naruto promised. "But I won't run from him either. Wouldn't expect anything else. Let's show these Sith what a Jinchuriki can do." The gunships launched into the darkening sky, racing toward Lesu as the first explosions lit the horizon. Somewhere ahead, Count Dooku waited with an army at his back. And Naruto Uzumaki, still learning the ways of this strange galaxy, prepared to face a Sith Lord in battle for the first time. Lesu burned. The capital city of Ryloth was built into towering mesas of pale stone, its architecture a testament to centuries of Twi'lek culture, elegant spires connected by bridges, homes carved into cliff faces, marketplaces that had hosted traders from across the galaxy. Now, Separatist artillery turned those monuments into rubble. The gunship carrying Naruto, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex's squad flew low through the canyons approaching the city, weaving between turbolaser fire that painted the night sky in shades of red and green. Through the viewport, Naruto watched droid armies advancing in perfect formation, their numbers seeming endless. "That's 3 full battalions," Rex reported, studying his tactical display. "Super battle droids, droidekas, and what looks like a handful of IG-100 Magna Guards." "Magna Guards?" Naruto asked. The gunship lurched as anti-aircraft fire exploded nearby. Naruto's stomach dropped as they descended rapidly, the pilot's voice crackling over the comm, 30 seconds to LZ. "Hang on." They came in fast, the gunship's repulsors screaming as it arrested their descent just feet above the city's main plaza. The doors blasted open, and Naruto found himself looking at a scene from a nightmare. Twi'lek civilians, men, women, children, ran through the streets in panic, their distinctive headtails streaming behind them as they fled the advancing droid army. Some carried what possessions they could salvage. Others helped the wounded. A mother clutched her child, pressing against a building as blaster fire chewed the ground nearby. Civilians in the combat zone, Cody's voice came over the comm from his position with Obi-Wan's forces on the far side of the city. "We need to establish a defensive line and get them to the evacuation points." "Easier said than done," Anakin muttered, leaping from the gunship with Ahsoka right behind him. "Rex, get your men in position." "Naruto." But Naruto was already running. He'd seen the child, no more than 5 or 6 years old in human terms, separated from her parents, frozen in terror as a line of battle droids turned their weapons toward her sector. The droids didn't distinguish between combatants and civilians. They simply executed their programming, eliminate resistance. Shadow clone jutsu. 20 Narutos appeared between the child and the droids. The battle droids opened fire, their blasters tracking the multiple targets, but the clones scattered like leaves in wind. Half of them engaged the droids in close combat, kunai flashing in the firelight. The other half formed a protective cordon around the terrified civilians. "Get to the plaza," one Naruto clone shouted to the Twi'leks in a voice he hoped sounded reassuring despite the chaos. "The Republic is establishing a safe zone. Move, now." The original Naruto scooped up the child, she was light, trembling, her eyes wide with shock, and ran. Behind him, his clones bought time with their lives, dispelling in puffs of smoke as blaster fire found them. Each dispelled clone sent its memories flooding back, and Naruto felt every impact, every moment of their brief existence. He deposited the child with a group of Twi'lek adults who were organizing the evacuation, then turned back toward the battle. His breath came hard, his chakra already depleting faster than he'd like. Creating that many clones repeatedly was taking its toll. Pace yourself, Kurama warned. You're not in your own world anymore. I can feel the strain this place puts on you. The force is interfering with your chakra flow. Making everything cost more. I know, Naruto thought back. But I can't just watch people die. Admirable. Stupid, but admirable. Anakin appeared at his side, deflecting blaster bolts with his lightsaber. That was reckless. That was necessary. Naruto shot back. We're not just fighting droids, we're protecting people. And you can't protect anyone if you're dead. Anakin countered, but there was something in his eyes, understanding, perhaps even approval. But you're right. Saving civilians is the priority. Just try to stay alive while doing it. An explosion rocked the plaza as a Separatist AAT tank rumbled into view, its main cannon tracking toward the evacuation point. Naruto's mind raced. He'd destroyed one of these tanks before, but he'd been fresher then, less depleted. I've got the tank, Anakin said, reading his expression. You keep the droids off the civilians. Wait, how are you going to? Anakin was already moving, using the force to leap impossibly high, sailing over blaster fire and landing on a rooftop. From there, he jumped again, this time directly onto the tank's hull. His lightsaber plunged into the armor like it was paper, carving a circular hole. Sparks flew, the tank's turret went dead, and Anakin was already moving again, using the force to rip critical components from inside before leaping clear. The tank shuddered to a halt, smoke pouring from its hatches. Show off, Naruto muttered, but he was grinning. These Jedi knew how to fight. For the next 20 minutes, the plaza became a desperate holding action. Clone troopers formed firing lines, their disciplined volleys cutting down waves of battle droids. Ahsoka moved through the combat like water, her lightsaber deflecting shots that would have killed fleeing civilians. And Naruto was everywhere at once, or rather, his clones were, creating confusion in the droid formations, rescuing trapped Twi'leks, and using his Rasengan to punch through super battle droid armor when nothing else would suffice. But the droids kept coming. We're being pushed back, Rex reported, his voice tight. If we don't get reinforcements soon. The air itself seemed to darken. Naruto felt it first, not with his eyes, but with that sixth sense he'd developed through years of fighting chakra-based opponents. Except this wasn't chakra. This was something colder, deeper, like a well of darkness that had no bottom. The force, he realized, but twisted into something that made his skin crawl. The Twi'leks felt it too. They cried out in fear, some of them collapsing as if the weight of that presence was physical. Even the clone troopers hesitated, their weapons wavering. Count Dooku stepped into the plaza. He walked calmly, almost casually, through the battlefield. Blaster fire from Republic positions converged on him, but with a negligent wave of his hand, the bolts simply stopped. They hung in the air for a moment, then fell harmlessly to the ground. Behind him came 4 IG-100 Magna Guards, their electrostaffs crackling with energy. Skywalker, Dooku called out, his voice carrying across the plaza despite the chaos. How predictable. And young Tano. Still clinging to the Jedi's false teachings, I see. Dooku. Anakin ignited his lightsaber, fury radiating from him. Your fight is with me. Leave the civilians alone. My fight is with the corruption that you defend, Dooku replied. His red lightsaber snapped to life with that distinctive hiss. But since you insist on standing in the way of progress, I suppose I'll have to remove you. Naruto moved to stand beside Anakin, kunai ready. Up close, Dooku's presence was overwhelming, power held in perfect control, refined through decades of training and mastery. This wasn't like fighting the enemies Naruto knew. Those had been powerful, certainly, but their power was often raw, emotional, uncontrolled. Dooku's power was surgical. Ah yes, Dooku said, his eyes settling on Naruto. The interdimensional anomaly. I was hoping we'd meet properly. Tell me, boy, have you reconsidered my offer? Not even a little bit, Naruto said, forcing his voice steady despite the fear trying to claw up his throat. Pity. Dooku's lightsaber came up in a classical Makashi salute. Then you'll die alongside your Jedi friends. He moved. It was faster than Naruto could track. One moment Dooku was 10 meters away, the next his red blade was descending toward Anakin's head. Anakin barely got his lightsaber up in time, the two plasma blades meeting with a shower of sparks and a sound like thunder. They disengaged, circled. Ahsoka tried to flank, but a Magna Guard intercepted her, its electrostaff meeting her lightsaber in a crackling display. The other three droids moved to engage the clone troopers, and suddenly the battle had fragmented into a dozen smaller fights. Naruto created clones and sent them to help Ahsoka and the troopers. But his attention stayed fixed on Dooku and Anakin. The Sith Lord fought with elegant precision, every movement economical and purposeful. Anakin's style was powerful and aggressive, but Dooku redirected his attacks with minimal effort, always a step ahead, always in perfect position. You've grown stronger, Skywalker, Dooku observed, parrying a strike that would have taken his arm. But strength without discipline is just flailing. I'll show you flailing, Anakin snarled, pressing the attack harder. But Dooku was right. Anakin's anger, his frustration at the war, at the civilian casualties, at Dooku himself, was making him sloppy. And Dooku was using that, baiting him into overextension. Naruto saw it happening. He'd done something similar against opponents who let emotion cloud their judgment. And he knew how it ended. When Dooku's force lightning caught Anakin in the chest, the Jedi's scream of pain confirmed it. Anakin went down hard, his lightsaber clattering away, blue electricity arcing across his body. His mechanical hand sparked and went dead, the circuits fried. Predictable, Dooku said, almost sadly. He raised his hand for the killing strike. Naruto moved without thinking. Rasengan. The spinning sphere of chakra came in from Dooku's blind side. The Sith Lord turned at the last moment, his eyes widening slightly. Surprise, Naruto realized that he'd gotten so close without being sensed through the Force. Dooku's lightsaber came up, but not fast enough to fully stop the attack. The Rasengan connected with his shoulder, and for the first time, the Count was driven backward, his expression shifting from surprise to pain. What? Dooku began. Naruto didn't give him time to finish. He'd learned from watching Anakin's mistake, don't give a skilled opponent room to think. He pressed forward with a combination of taijutsu and kunai work, forcing Dooku to defend rather than counter. But it couldn't last. Dooku's free hand came up, and Naruto felt himself lifted off the ground by an invisible force. The grip was like iron around his throat, cutting off air, crushing with pressure that made his vision swim. Impressive, Dooku said, examining his injured shoulder with clinical detachment. Your technique penetrated my defenses because it's not the Force. My precognition couldn't anticipate it properly. He tightened his grip, and Naruto's vision began to darken. But raw power means nothing without the skill to apply it. Now, Kit. While he's distracted. Naruto didn't try to fight the Force grip, that was what Dooku expected. Instead, he formed hand seals as best he could with his restricted movement. Wind style, great breakthrough. The blast of wind erupted from his mouth, not aimed at Dooku but at the ground beneath them. Dust and debris exploded upward in a blinding cloud. Dooku's concentration faltered for just a moment, his force grip loosening. It was enough. Naruto dropped, gasping for air, and rolled away as Dooku's lightsaber carved through the space where he'd been. He came up coughing, his throat bruised, but alive. Anakin was back on his feet, his left hand sparking but his lightsaber in his right. Cute trick, he wheezed. Learn from the best, Naruto replied. They faced Dooku together, and for a moment, the Sith Lord actually looked uncertain. Two opponents who'd proven they could hurt him, in a battle that was no longer going according to his plan. Then the sky lit up with turbolaser fire. Republic Star Destroyers dropped out of hyperspace, their guns already firing on the Separatist positions. Obi-Wan's voice crackled over the comms, "Reinforcements have arrived. All units, push forward." Dooku's expression darkened. "It seems your gambit has succeeded, Skywalker. Enjoy your hollow victory." He looked at Naruto one last time. "We'll meet again, boy. And next time, I'll be prepared for your unique abilities." The Sith Lord activated a recall beacon. A Separatist shuttle descended through the chaos, and Dooku was aboard before anyone could stop him. The Magna Guards disengaged, retreating in perfect synchronization, covering their master's escape. As the shuttle disappeared into the night sky, Naruto collapsed to his knees, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Every muscle ached. His chakra reserves were dangerously low. But they'd won. The civilians were safe. The city was saved. Anakin offered him a hand up. "You saved my life." "You'd have done the same," Naruto replied, taking it. "Yeah," Anakin agreed. "But not many people stand up to a Sith Lord on their first try. You've got guts, Uzumaki." Around them, clone troopers and Twi'lek civilians began the work of recovery, of counting the living and mourning the dead. And as Naruto helped pull survivors from rubble, as he used his remaining chakra to aid the overwhelmed medical staff, he felt something shift inside him. This galaxy wasn't his home. This war wasn't his fight. But these people, clones who chose to be heroes, Jedi who fought despite their doubts, civilians who just wanted to live in peace, they were worth fighting for. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Darth Sidious watched through his web of spies and informants, and began to formulate a plan for the Shinobi who had disrupted his carefully orchestrated war. The Jedi Temple archive stretched into shadows that seemed to have no end. Vast halls of holocrons and data terminals formed a labyrinth of knowledge accumulated over 10 millennia, everything the Jedi Order had learned about the Force, the galaxy, and the mysteries that lay beyond conventional understanding. Naruto walked beside Jocasta Nu, the elderly Jedi archivist whose sharp eyes missed nothing despite her advanced age. Her presence was calm, scholarly, utterly different from the warriors he'd fought alongside on Ryloth. "Dimensional phenomena," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. "An interesting research topic. Might I ask what prompted this inquiry?" "Personal reasons," Naruto replied, trying not to sound evasive. Obi-Wan had arranged this access as promised, but the fewer people who knew the full details of his arrival, the better, or so the Jedi Council had decided. Jocasta Nu gave him a look that suggested she knew exactly what he wasn't saying but was too polite to press. "Very well. The texts you're looking for are in the forbidden section, not because they're dangerous, precisely, but because they deal with theoretical concepts that can be unsettling to contemplate." She led him to a secured area where ancient holocrons rested on pedestals, their crystalline structures glowing faintly with stored information. Her weathered hand activated one, a pyramidal device that projected the image of a long-dead Jedi Master. "Master Zar Lestin," the holocron intoned in a voice that seemed to come from across centuries. "In my studies of the Force, I have encountered phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality itself. Rifts in spacetime, tears in the fabric of the universe where the Force flows differently, or does not flow at all." Naruto leaned forward, his exhaustion from Ryloth forgotten. "Does it say how these rifts form?" Jocasta Nu manipulated the controls, fast-forwarding through the recording. "Here," she said. "This section discusses causation. The rifts appear to form where incompatible energies collide," Master Zar's image continued. "When powers that should not coexist attempt to occupy the same space, reality itself can fracture. I have theorized that beings from other dimensions, if such things exist, might accidentally create such rifts through the use of their native abilities in our space. That's what happened," Kurama confirmed in Naruto's mind. "Your jutsu colliding with whatever your opponent was using, it created a tear between dimensions. And we fell through. Does it say how to reverse it? Naruto asked urgently. How to create a controlled rift to go back. Jocasta Nu's expression turned sympathetic. The texts are theoretical, young man. Masters are documented phenomena, he observed, but he never successfully created or controlled a dimensional rift. The energy requirements would be astronomical. Naruto's hands clenched. Of course it wouldn't be easy. Nothing ever was. However, Jocasta Nu continued, her tone thoughtful, there are legends of ancient force artifacts capable of manipulating space and time. The star map, for instance, or the dark staff. If you're truly from another dimension, such artifacts might theoretically have the power to return you. Where would I find these artifacts? That's the challenge, she admitted. Most are lost to history. Others are guarded by groups that would not willingly part with them. And some, she hesitated. Some are said to be in Sith possession. The word hung in the air between them like a curse. The Sith would have knowledge about dimensional travel? Naruto asked. The Sith studied aspects of the Force the Jedi deemed too dangerous, Jocasta Nu explained. Including attempts to tear holes in reality itself, to access the dark spaces between dimensions where things reside. If anyone in this galaxy has practical knowledge of what you're seeking, it would be them. Naruto thought of Dooku's offer on Ryloth. Resources to find his way home, the Count had said. Knowledge the Jedi kept hidden. Had that been truth mixed with manipulation, or pure deception? I can see you're considering something unwise, Jocasta Nu said gently. Let me offer you counsel, the Sith do not give freely. Whatever they offer comes with chains attached. You may find your way home, but at the cost of your soul. I'm not planning to join the Sith, Naruto assured her. But I need to get home. My friends, my village, they need me. There's still a war there, still people depending on me. And yet you fight in our war, Jocasta Nu observed. You saved lives on Ryloth. Captain Rex's report was quite glowing. You could remain neutral, focus solely on your quest to return home. Why don't you? Naruto was quiet for a moment, thinking about the Twi'lek child he'd saved, about Rex choosing to be a hero every day, about Anakin standing against Dooku despite knowing he might lose. Because standing aside while people suffer isn't who I am, he said finally. My teacher, one of them, anyway, he used to say that a ninja's most important duty is protecting what's precious to them. I can't just ignore people who need help, even if they're not my people. Jocasta Nu smiled, the expression transforming her stern features. Perhaps the Force brought you here for a reason. Not to return home, but to be exactly where you're needed. The Force didn't bring me here, Naruto corrected gently. An accident did. I don't believe in destiny or fate, I believe in making your own path. An admirable philosophy, she conceded. Though I wonder if you'll maintain it after spending more time in this galaxy. The Force has a way of revealing patterns we don't expect. Before Naruto could respond, his comm unit chirped, the device Obi-Wan had given him for emergencies. Anakin's voice came through, tense and urgent. Naruto, get to the council chambers. Now. We've got a problem. The council chamber felt different this time. The same 12 Jedi Masters sat in their positions, but the atmosphere was heavy with something Naruto couldn't quite identify. Concern. Fear. Anger. Obi-Wan and Anakin stood to one side, their expressions grim. In the center of the room, a holographic recording played on repeat, grainy footage from what looked like a security camera. It showed Naruto on Ryloth, surrounded by his shadow clones, using the Rasengan to destroy battle droids. But that wasn't what made the council's attention so intense. The footage had been edited, slowed down, analyzed. And someone had added commentary, a cultured voice that Naruto recognized immediately as Count Dooku's. Observe, Dooku's voice narrated over the images. A warrior from another dimension, wielding powers the Jedi cannot control or predict. The Republic has unleashed an unknown variable into this war, a weapon they don't understand, used against the Separatist alliance without regard for the consequences. The footage shifted to show civilian casualties, Twi'leks caught in crossfire, buildings destroyed. Naruto's stomach turned as he realized what he was seeing. Someone had spliced together footage to make it look like his techniques had caused collateral damage. The Jedi claimed to be peacekeepers, Dooku's voice continued, smooth and persuasive. Yet they employ extradimensional forces, beings not bound by the laws of our galaxy, to wage their war. Is this the Republic you wish to defend? One that summons outsiders to kill on their behalf? The hologram ended. The silence that followed was oppressive. This broadcast has been sent to every Separatist-aligned system, Mace Windu said, his voice hard. Dooku is using you as propaganda, turning your presence into a weapon against the Republic's credibility. But that's not what happened. Naruto protested. I was saving civilians. My clones. We know, Obi-Wan interrupted gently. Everyone in this room knows the truth. But the Separatists have framed the narrative. To their supporters, you're now proof that the Republic has become desperate, that we're employing unknown forces without consideration for galactic stability. Some of the neutral systems are expressing concern as well, Ki-Adi-Mundi added. They're asking questions. Where did you come from? What is your agenda? Can you be trusted? Naruto felt anger rising in his chest. He'd fought to protect people, put himself in danger for a war that wasn't even his, and now he was being used as propaganda by the same person who tried to kill him. Welcome to politics, Kit, Kurama growled. Where truth matters less than narrative. I told you to be careful. What do you want me to do? Naruto asked, forcing his voice to stay level. Should I leave? Go into hiding? Stop fighting? No, Yoda said, his ancient eyes fixed on Naruto with unexpected intensity. Exactly what Dooku wants, that would be. Drive you away, isolate you, make you vulnerable to his manipulation. Then what? Naruto demanded. We fight back with the truth, Anakin said, stepping forward. We release our own footage, show what really happened. Make it clear that you were protecting civilians, not attacking them. A propaganda war, this becomes, Yoda mused. Dangerous, it is. But necessary, perhaps. There's another option, Mace Windu said slowly, his expression troubled. We could announce that Naruto Uzumaki has been granted official status as a Republic ally. Make his presence legitimate, explain his origins publicly. It would undercut Dooku's narrative. It would also paint a target on his back, Obi-Wan countered. Every Separatist assassin and bounty hunter would know exactly who he is and what he represents. They already know, Anakin pointed out. After Ryloth, everyone knows. Naruto listened to them debate his fate, feeling a familiar frustration. It was like being back in the Leaf Village, where the adults made decisions about him without asking what he wanted. Except this time, they were at least including him in the room. Stop, he said quietly. The Jedi Council turned to look at him. Stop arguing about what to do with me like I'm a weapon to be deployed or hidden, Naruto continued, his voice gaining strength. I'm a person. I make my own choices. And here's what I choose. I'm going to keep fighting to protect people, because that's what I do. I'm going to keep looking for a way home, because my world needs me. And I'm going to face whatever consequences come from that, because I don't run from my decisions. A commendable stance, Mace Windu said. But. No buts, Naruto interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. You Jedi, you've got all these rules and philosophies about attachment and emotion and the dark side. But you know what I've learned? The people who changed my world, who broke cycles of hatred and brought real peace, they didn't do it by following rules. They did it by connecting with others, by refusing to give up on people even when it was hard. The Jedi Code exists for good reasons, Ki-Adi-Mundi began. Maybe, Naruto conceded. But so does trusting yourself to make the right choice even when the rules don't have an answer. He looked directly at Yoda. You said the Force brought me here, or maybe it didn't. Either way, I'm here now. So use me or don't, trust me or don't, but don't expect me to hide or change who I am because it's politically convenient. The council chamber was silent. Then, unexpectedly, Yoda began to laugh, a dry, wheezing sound that somehow held genuine amusement. Remind me of someone, you do, the ancient master said, his eyes twinkling as he glanced at Anakin. Young, stubborn, convinced that their way is right despite what wisdom says. He sobered slightly. Sometimes, the galaxy needs such people. Sometimes, they change everything. So what's the decision? Anakin asked. No decision for us to make, Yoda replied. His own path, Naruto Uzumaki walks. Support him, we will. Guide him, we may try. But control him? He shook his head. Neither necessary nor possible, that is. Then we proceed as planned, Obi-Wan said. Naruto continues as an independent ally. We release counter footage showing the truth of Ryloth. And we prepare for Dooku's next move. Which will likely involve trying to eliminate or capture Naruto, Mace Windu added. You understand you've made yourself a priority target? I've been a target my whole life, Naruto replied. At least here, I've got allies watching my back. As the council dismissed them, Naruto felt Kurama's presence surge with something like approval. You're learning, Kit. In this galaxy full of Force users and politicians, you're remembering the most important lesson, stay true to yourself, no matter what. Always, Naruto thought back. But as he left the council chambers with Anakin and Obi-Wan, none of them noticed the shadow that had been listening from a concealed alcove, a presence neither Jedi nor Sith, but something far more dangerous. Darth Sidious, hidden behind layers of deception even the Jedi Council couldn't penetrate, had heard everything. And now, he began to plan how to turn this interdimensional anomaly to his advantage. After all, a weapon that couldn't be sensed through the Force was exactly what he needed to eliminate his most problematic obstacle, the Jedi Order itself. The mission briefing came 3 days after the council meeting, and it was Obi-Wan who delivered the news with an expression that told Naruto this wasn't going to be simple. Mandalore, Obi-Wan said, gesturing to the holographic star map displaying a system in the outer rim. Specifically, the moon of Concordia. We've received intelligence that a Separatist weapons facility has been established there, producing some kind of experimental technology. The Duchess Satine has requested Jedi assistance to investigate, as it violates Mandalore's official neutrality. Mandalore? Anakin said, his tone suggesting complications. The warrior culture that doesn't like Jedi very much? That's a simplification, but essentially accurate, Obi-Wan replied with a slight grimace. The current government under Duchess Satine has renounced their martial past, embracing pacifism. However, there are factions, the Death Watch, who want to return to the old ways. This weapons facility might be connected to them, to the Separatists, or both. And you want me to come along, Naruto guessed. The facility is reportedly developing anti-Force weaponry, Obi-Wan explained. Devices designed to disrupt a Jedi's connection to the Force, rendering them powerless. If such technology falls into Separatist hands on a large scale, the war could turn decisively against us. But I don't use the Force, Naruto said, understanding dawning. My chakra might not be affected. Precisely. Your abilities operate on principles outside the Force. If we encounter these weapons, you may be our only effective combatant. Obi-Wan's expression turned more serious. However, I should warn you, Mandalorians are among the galaxy's most formidable warriors. They've fought Jedi for millennia and developed tactics specifically to counter Force users. They won't underestimate you the way the battle droids do. Sounds like fun, Naruto said, though his stomach tightened slightly. Every battle in this galaxy taught him how much he still didn't understand about this universe's dangers. Careful, Kit, Kurama warned. You're spreading yourself thin. Every fight depletes you, and this force interference is making recovery slower than normal. You're not invincible here. I know, Naruto thought back. But what choice do I have? If I stop fighting, people die. Just don't become one of them. The mission team was small by design: Obi-Wan, Naruto, Ahsoka, and a squad of clone troopers led by Commander Cody. They approached Concordia in a nondescript transport vessel rather than a Republic gunship, trying to maintain the appearance of a diplomatic visit rather than a military operation. As they descended through Concordia's atmosphere, Naruto studied the moon's surface. Dense forests of massive trees covered most of the landscape, broken by mining facilities and ancient domed structures that spoke of a civilization that had once been far more militant than it appeared now. Beautiful, Ahsoka observed, her leku swaying as she took in the view. Deceptive, Obi-Wan corrected quietly. Mandalore's pacifist transformation is recent, only about 20 years old. Many Mandalorians still remember the old ways, still honor the warrior culture. Death Watch represents that sentiment taken to the extreme. They landed at a designated facility on the moon's surface, where they were met by the local governor, a Mandalorian official in plain clothing rather than armor, embodying the pacifist philosophy. But Naruto noticed the way the man's eyes tracked them, assessing threats with the instinct of someone who'd been trained to fight, regardless of current philosophy. Master Kenobi, the governor greeted them with formal courtesy. The Duchess appreciates your discretion in this matter. The facility you're investigating is in the northern forest sector, an old mining complex that should have been decommissioned years ago. Do you have information about who's operating it? Obi-Wan asked. The governor's expression darkened. We've intercepted communications suggesting Death Watch involvement, possibly in coordination with Separatist agents. If true, it's a direct violation of Mandalore's neutrality and could draw us into your war against our will. We'll investigate carefully, Obi-Wan assured him. This doesn't need to become an incident. The governor's eyes settled on Naruto, studying him with open curiosity. You're the one from another dimension. The one who fought at Ryloth. Word travels fast, Naruto replied. Mandalorians pay attention to new warriors appearing on the battlefield, the governor said. Especially ones who fight Sith lords and survive. Some of our people are interested in meeting you. Is that a threat? Naruto asked carefully. An observation, the governor replied. Not all Mandalorians have embraced pacifism. Some still believe strength should be proven through combat. They might see you as a challenge to test themselves against. Great, Ahsoka muttered. Just what we need. They departed the facility in a speeder, heading north through forests that grew increasingly dense. The trees here were enormous, hundreds of meters tall, their trunks wide enough to house entire buildings. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden shafts, creating an almost mystical atmosphere. I can see why they call this place beautiful, Naruto said, momentarily forgetting the danger as he took in the landscape. Don't get distracted, Cody warned from the driver's seat. These forests are perfect ambush territory. Death Watch knows this terrain better than we do. The commander's warning proved prophetic. They were halfway to the mining facility when the speeder's control panel erupted in sparks. Cody swore, fighting to maintain control as the vehicle lurched sideways. An EMP, Naruto realized, something had fried their electronics. Ambush! Obi-Wan shouted, igniting his lightsaber as figures appeared from the tree-line. They wore armor, proper Mandalorian armor in shades of blue and gray, with the distinctive T-shaped visors that had become synonymous with the warrior culture. Their weapons were raised, blasters, but also flame projectors, wrist-mounted missiles, and other tools designed specifically to counter Force users. Death Watch, one of them shouted, his voice filtered through his helmet's vocoder. By order of Pre-Vizsla, you're trespassing on Mandalorian territory. Surrender or die. We're here on behalf of your own Duchess, Obi-Wan called back, his lightsaber held in a defensive position. There's no need for violence. The response was a volley of blaster fire. Obi-Wan's lightsaber became a blur, deflecting bolts, but these Mandalorians didn't fight like battle droids. They spread out, used cover, coordinated their fire to come from multiple angles simultaneously. One launched a wrist rocket that exploded near Ahsoka, forcing her to dive aside. Naruto created shadow clones, sending them to flank the Mandalorian positions. But these warriors adapted quickly. They'd fought Force users before and recognized clone techniques as similar enough to Force illusions. Flamethrowers swept across positions where his clones gathered, dispelling multiple copies in bursts of superheated air. "They're good," Naruto admitted, taking cover behind the crashed speeder. "They're Mandalorians," Cody replied, returning fire with his blaster rifle. "This is what they do." One Mandalorian broke from cover, activating a jetpack and soaring directly at Obi-Wan. The Jedi Master prepared to defend, but the warrior's approach was a feint. At the last moment, he fired his wrist rockets not at Obi-Wan but at the ground beneath him, creating an explosion that disrupted the Jedi's footing. A second Mandalorian moved in with a biscad, a traditional Mandalorian blade, swinging for Obi-Wan's head. The lightsaber caught the blade, and Naruto expected to see the metal cut through. Instead, the biscad held, Beskar iron. He remembered Obi-Wan mentioning, one of the few materials that could resist lightsabers. The fight was turning against them. The clone troopers were pinned down by superior positioning, Ahsoka was separated from the main group, and Obi-Wan was engaged in close combat that prevented him from using his full abilities. Naruto made a decision. "Kurama, I need your chakra." "About time you asked," the Ninetales responded, and suddenly Naruto felt power flooding through him, not the full-tailed beast transformation, not here where he didn't know the consequences, but enough of Kurama's chakra to push his abilities beyond normal limits. His eyes became fox-like, vertical pupils dilating. A cloak of golden chakra formed around him, visible even to those who couldn't sense energy. The Mandalorians hesitated, their weapons tracking this new development with uncertainty. "What is that?" one of them muttered. "Target the glowing one," another commanded. They opened fire, but Naruto was faster now. He dodged with enhanced speed, closing the distance before they could adjust. His chakra-enhanced strength let him tear a blaster from a Mandalorian's grip, his reflexes letting him catch a wrist rocket and redirect it back toward its source. But the Mandalorians weren't panicking. They adapted, switching tactics. If he was fast, they'd use area effect weapons. Flamethrowers, sonic weapons, grenades designed to create shrapnel fields. Naruto formed hand seals mid-dodge. Wind style, vacuum sphere. Compressed air bullets shot from his mouth, each one precise enough to target weapons rather than warriors. Blasters sparked and died, a jetpack sputtered offline, forcing its wearer to crash land. "He's neutralizing our equipment," a Mandalorian shouted. "Then we do this old school," their leader responded, drawing a vibroblade and charging. The combat became close-quarters chaos. Naruto's kunai met biscad blades, chakra-enhanced strikes meeting Mandalorian combat training. These warriors had spent lifetimes perfecting the art of fighting opponents who had supernatural advantages, and it showed. One Mandalorian got inside his guard, landed a solid punch to his ribs that cracked something despite the chakra cloak's protection. Another swept his legs, forcing him into a defensive role. They weren't trying to kill him, he realized, they were testing him, seeing what he could do. Enough. The voice cut through the battlefield like a blade, carrying authority that made both sides pause. A figure emerged from the tree-line, tall, commanding, wearing Mandalorian armor that was clearly of a higher quality than the others. His helmet bore the symbol of Death Watch, but he carried himself with the bearing of a true leader. "Pre-Vizsla," Naruto guessed. "Stand down," Vizsla commanded his warriors. He looked at Obi-Wan, then at Naruto, his helmet tilting slightly. "So. The rumors are true. A warrior from another dimension, fighting in our galaxy's war." "We're not here to fight you," Obi-Wan said, his lightsaber still active but lowered. "We're investigating illegal weapons development." "As are we," Vizsla replied, surprising them. That facility? It's not ours. It's a Separatist operation disguised to look like Death Watch work, probably to discredit us and give the Duchess an excuse to crack down harder on traditionalists. You expect us to believe you're not involved? Ahsoka challenged. I expect you to use your brains, Vizsla countered. If we wanted weapons, we'd make them ourselves. We're Mandalorians, we've been crafting superior armor and weapons for millennia. Why would we need Separatist help? Obi-Wan considered this, and Naruto saw the calculation in his eyes. It made sense. If Death Watch was truly working with Separatists, they wouldn't need a facility on their own territory where it could be discovered. A setup, Obi-Wan said slowly. Someone wants to force Mandalore into the war by making it look like Death Watch is building Separatist weapons. Now you're thinking, Vizsla said. The question is, are you going to help us shut it down, or are we going to keep fighting? Naruto released Kurama's chakra, letting the golden cloak fade. His ribs ached where he'd been hit, but nothing felt broken. If someone's trying to drag your people into a war they don't want, I'm willing to help stop it. Even though we just tried to kill you, one of the Mandalorians asked, sounding almost amused. You were testing me, Naruto replied. If you'd wanted me dead, you'd have used lethal tactics from the start. Besides, he grinned despite the pain. Where I come from, fighting someone is sometimes the best way to understand them. Vizsla's helmet tilted again, and though Naruto couldn't see his face, he sensed approval. You think like a Mandalorian, outsider. Perhaps there's more to you than Republic propaganda. So we have an alliance? Obi-Wan asked carefully. A temporary truce, Vizsla corrected. We both want that facility shut down. After that, he shrugged. We'll see. As the two groups merged, Jedi, clones, and Mandalorian warriors moving together toward the facility, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was about to become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. And deep in the facility ahead, in chambers filled with technology that shouldn't exist, something waited that would test not just Naruto's power, but his understanding of what was truly at stake in the Clone Wars. The weapons facility was built into an ancient mining complex, its entrance hidden beneath centuries of forest growth. As they approached, an unlikely alliance of Jedi, Republic clones, and Death Watch Mandalorians, Naruto could sense something wrong about the place. Not through the Force, but through that sixth sense he'd developed fighting enemies who use techniques meant to remain hidden. There's something off, he said quietly to Obi-Wan. The Jedi Master nodded. I feel it too. The Force is, muted here. Suppressed somehow. Which means if there are anti-Force weapons inside, they're already active, Ahsoka observed, her hand drifting to her lightsaber. We might be walking into a trap specifically designed to neutralize us. Then it's fortunate we brought someone who doesn't rely on the Force, Vizsla said, gesturing to Naruto. You'll take point with my squad. If there are defenses keyed to Force signatures, you should be able to bypass them. It was tactically sound, but Naruto didn't miss the calculation behind it. Vizsla was testing whether he could be trusted, sending him into danger first. Fair enough. Trust was earned, not given. Cody, keep our exit secured, Obi-Wan ordered. If this goes badly, someone needs to report back to the Republic. Yes sir, the commander replied, though his expression suggested he didn't like being left behind. They entered the facility through a service tunnel, moving in tactical formation with Naruto and 3 Mandalorians at the front, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka in the middle, and the rest of Vizsla's warriors covering their rear. The tunnel was dark, illuminated only by their lights, and the walls were lined with technology that looked neither Republic nor Separatist in origin. These systems are old, one of the Mandalorians observed, running a scanner over the equipment. Pre-Republic era, maybe even older. Someone's been retrofitting ancient tech with modern components. Why would the Separatists bother? Ahsoka asked. They have advanced technology of their own. Because ancient tech sometimes operates on different principles, Obi-Wan said grimly. Principles that modern defenses weren't designed to counter. They descended deeper, the air growing colder despite the lack of ventilation issues. Naruto's breath misted slightly, and he felt Kurama stirring uneasily. Something's draining energy from the environment, the Nine-Tails warned. Not just the Force, everything. Heat, light, even ambient chakra. Be careful. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that made everyone stop in their tracks. It was a laboratory, but one that operated on a scale that seemed designed for giants. Massive cylinders lined the walls, each one containing swirling energy that pulsed with sickly purple light. In the center stood a device that hurt to look at, a sphere of impossibly black material that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, surrounded by rings of metal inscribed with symbols that predated any galactic language Obi-Wan recognized. And standing before the device was a figure in dark robes, his back to them, hands raised as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Count Dooku, Obi-Wan said, igniting his lightsaber. The Sith Lord turned, and Naruto's blood ran cold. Dooku's expression wasn't one of surprise or anger, it was satisfaction, as if they'd done exactly what he'd expected. Master Kenobi. Young Tano. And the Mandalorians, led by Pre-Vizsla himself. Dooku's gaze settled on Naruto. And of course, our interdimensional anomaly. How perfect. You've assembled everyone I needed in one place. This is a trap, Vizsla said flatly, his blaster already rising. Obviously, Dooku replied. But not the trap you imagine. I'm not here to kill you, I'm here to demonstrate why you should reconsider your allegiances. He gestured to the dark sphere behind him. This device is called a void engine, technology from the ancient Rakata, refined through Sith alchemy. It doesn't just suppress the Force. It nullifies all forms of exotic energy within its field of effect. As if to demonstrate, he activated it. The effect was immediate and devastating. Obi-Wan staggered as his connection to the Force was severed, not gradually but like a limb being amputated. Ahsoka gasped, her lekku paling as the energy that had been part of her since birth simply stopped. Even the Mandalorians felt it, their energy shields flickered and died, their powered armor losing functionality, reducing them to just metal shells. And Naruto felt his chakra network seize up, like every pathway had suddenly closed. He couldn't mold chakra, couldn't form hand seals, couldn't even sense Kurama anymore. It was like being back before he'd ever trained as a ninja, powerless and small. Naruto. Kurama's voice was distant, muffled, as if shouting through thick walls. I can't reach you. The seal is intact but our connection is blocked. What have you done? Obi-Wan managed, falling to one knee. I've leveled the playing field, Dooku said calmly, drawing his lightsaber, which still ignited despite the field, Naruto noticed. The void engine doesn't affect conventional technology. Blasters still fire. Blades still cut. But force powers, chakra manipulation, any form of exotic energy that makes you special, all of it is suppressed within this facility. Vizsla fired his blaster. Dooku deflected the bolt casually with his blade, but Naruto noticed something, the Sith Lord's movements weren't enhanced by the Force anymore. He was just a skilled swordsman now, dangerous but mortal. You've neutered yourself too, Vizsla observed. Brave or stupid? Confident, Dooku corrected. I've trained for decades in conventional combat. Can you say the same? How many of you rely so heavily on your powers that without them, you're helpless? It was a pointed question, and the answer was uncomfortable. The Jedi were trained as duelists, yes, but their entire combat philosophy was built around force augmentation. The Mandalorians were better off, their culture emphasized weapons and tactics over supernatural abilities, but even they'd grown dependent on powered armor and advanced equipment. And Naruto? He'd fought hand-to-hand before, but never without the ability to call on chakra for even basic enhancement. The Separatist Alliance will deploy these devices across the galaxy, Dooku continued, circling them slowly. Imagine, entire battle zones where Jedi are reduced to baseline humans. Fleets where force precognition doesn't warn of danger. A war where your supernatural advantages mean nothing. You'd cripple yourself too, Obi-Wan argued, struggling to his feet despite the loss of Force strength. The Sith need the Force as much as the Jedi. Do we? Dooku smiled coldly. The Sith began as warriors who rejected the Jedi's mystical weakness. We understand power in all its forms, not just the Force. With these devices, we eliminate the Jedi's advantage while proving that the Sith are superior even without supernatural power. Insane, Ahsoka breathed. Visionary, Dooku corrected. He raised his lightsaber, pointing it at Naruto. But there's a complication. Your chakra operates on principles the Void Engine was never designed to counter completely. Given time, you might adapt. You might find a way to function even within this field. So why tell us all this? Naruto demanded, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. Why not just kill us? Because I'm offering you one final chance, Dooku said. Join me. With your unique abilities and our resources, we could refine the Void Engine to suppress the Force while leaving chakra untouched. You'd become the ultimate weapon, effective where Jedi and Sith alike are powerless. And if I refuse? Then I kill everyone in this room, starting with your friends, and you watch powerless to stop it. Dooku's expression was almost sympathetic. You fought bravely, Naruto Uzumaki. You've defended civilians, saved lives, proven yourself honorable. But honor means nothing without power to enforce it. Choose, join me and gain the power to actually change this galaxy, or watch your allies die because you're too stubborn to make the practical choice. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the Void Engine and the labored breathing of Force users struggling with its effects. Naruto's mind raced. Without chakra, without Kurama, he was just a taijutsu fighter against a master swordsman who trained for 70 years. The Jedi couldn't help, they were barely standing. The Mandalorians had weapons but Dooku had a lightsaber and decades of combat experience. They were outmatched. Completely, utterly outmatched. And yet, Naruto thought about his teachers. About Kakashi-sensei who taught him that sometimes the solution wasn't raw power but clever tactics. About Jiraiya-sensei who'd shown him that the strongest ninja was often the most unpredictable. About Tsunade who'd proven that strength came from refusing to give up, even when victory seemed impossible. He thought about the nine tails inside him, not as a source of power, but as a partner, a friend who'd stood by him through everything. And he thought about his ninja way, never going back on his word, never abandoning comrades, never surrendering no matter how impossible the odds. You're right about one thing, Naruto said, his voice cutting through the tension. Power matters. But you're wrong about what kind. He stepped forward, weaponless, powerless, facing a Sith Lord with nothing but determination. The power that changed my world wasn't chakra or jutsu or being the strongest fighter. It was the power of bonds, connections between people who refused to give up on each other. I've fought gods and demons and people who could destroy mountains. And I beat them not because I was the strongest, but because I had people standing with me. Touching, Dooku said dryly. But sentiment doesn't deflect lightsabers. Maybe not, Naruto agreed. But it does something better. It makes people fight harder than they thought possible. He glanced at Obi-Wan, at Ahsoka, at Ryloth and his Mandalorians. You're all warriors. You've all trained your entire lives for combat. Yeah, you've got powers and tech that make you stronger. But are you really helpless without them? Or have you just forgotten how to fight with nothing but skill and will? Obi-Wan's eyes widened slightly. Then, despite the loss of the Force, despite his exhaustion, he straightened and raised his lightsaber in a defensive stance. He's right. The Jedi existed for thousands of years before we became dependent on Force augmentation. We trained in combat forms, in strategy, in the art of the blade itself. Mandalorians fought Jedi for millennia, Ryloth added, his blaster tracking Dooku. We did it without the Force, without supernatural powers. Just weapons, tactics, and determination. Ahsoka ignited her lightsaber, her young face set with fierce resolve. I'm a Padawan. I've trained every day since I was 3 years old. Force or no force, I'm still dangerous. Dooku's expression shifted from confident to uncertain. You can't seriously think. We think that you made a mistake, Obi-Wan interrupted. You trapped us in here with you, cut yourself off from the Force, and expected us to surrender. But you forgot something important about warriors, Count. We're most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose. What happened next was chaos born of desperation and coordination. Vyjlov's Mandalorians opened fire, not trying for killing shots but for distraction, forcing Dooku to deflect. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka moved in from different angles, their lightsaber forms precise despite the lack of force enhancement, relying purely on muscle memory and training. And Naruto? He did what he'd always done best, he improvised. He couldn't use chakra, couldn't enhance his strength or speed. But he could still move, still fight with the taijutsu he drilled into his body through thousands of hours of training. He slid under a Mandalorian's covering fire, grabbed a fallen piece of equipment, and hurled it at the Void Engine's control panel. Dooku sensed the danger and force pushed, except the force didn't work. He had to physically dive to intercept, abandoning his perfect dueling stance. In that moment of distraction, Obi-Wan's blade came within inches of his shoulder. Dooku parried desperately, his technique flawless but no longer superhuman. Destroy the controls. Obi-Wan shouted. The Mandalorians shifted their fire, pouring blaster bolts into the Void Engine systems. Sparks flew, metal screamed, and the purple energy in the cylinders began to pulse erratically. No! Dooku roared, abandoning the fight to protect the device. But it was too late. The Void Engine's containment failed catastrophically. Energy exploded outward in a wave that sent everyone flying. Naruto hit a wall hard, his vision swimming, and for a moment he felt nothing. Then, like a dam breaking, chakra flooded back into his system. Naruto. Kurama's voice was a roar of relief and rage. Are you okay? What happened? I couldn't. I'm fine, Naruto thought back, staggering to his feet. But we need to end this. Now. He looked across the chamber to where Dooku was rising, the Sith Lord's robe scorched, his expression twisted with fury. The Force had returned to him too, and his power blazed like a dark star. But something had changed. In fighting without the Force, in being pushed to his limits by enemies he'd thought helpless, Dooku had revealed something. He wasn't invincible. He could be beaten. This isn't over, Dooku snarled, activating his recall beacon. You've won this battle, but the war. Save the villain's speech, Naruto interrupted, his hand glowing with swirling chakra. Rasengan. The attack came faster than Dooku could fully react, still recovering from the explosion. The Sith Lord managed a partial force barrier, but the Rasengan ground through it, catching him in the chest and sending him flying backward through a Dura-Steel support beam. Before Dooku could recover, his escape shuttle crashed through the facility's ceiling, its automated systems responding to his beacon. He force leaped aboard, and the shuttle was gone before anyone could stop him. The facility was collapsing now, the Void Engine's destruction having destabilized the ancient structure. Alarms shrieked, support beams groaned, and the floor beneath them began to crack. Everyone out. Vyjlov commanded, his warriors already moving. They ran through passages that were crumbling behind them, emerging into the forest just as the entire complex imploded in a shower of stone and metal. The explosion echoed across Concordia, and somewhere in the distance, Naruto heard sirens as planetary defense forces responded. As the dust settled, the unlikely alliance stood together, battered, exhausted, but alive. You fought well, Vyjlov said to Naruto, pulling off his helmet to reveal a scarred, weathered face. Like a true Mandalorian. If you ever tire of the Jedi, you'd be welcome among my people. I'm not with the Jedi, Naruto replied. I'm with whoever's trying to stop this war from consuming everything. Then perhaps our paths will cross again. Vizsla signaled his warriors, and they disappeared into the forest as silently as they'd appeared. Obi-Wan approached Naruto, placing a hand on his shoulder. What you did in there, reminding us that we're more than just our powers, that may have saved all our lives. We're stronger than we think, Naruto said simply. All of us. We just forget sometimes. As they made their way back to their transport, Ahsoka walked beside Naruto. That speech you gave, about bonds and connections, you really believe that? I know it, Naruto replied. I've lived it. The strongest person I ever knew wasn't the one with the most power. It was the one who never gave up on people, who found strength in protecting what mattered to them. You sound like a Jedi, Ahsoka observed. Maybe, Naruto admitted. Or maybe good ideas show up in lots of places, and it doesn't matter what you call them. They lifted off from Concordia as the sun set, painting the moon's forests in shades of gold and crimson. Below, the destroyed facility smoldered, a testament to how close Dooku had come to changing the war forever. But as the stars opened up before them and they jumped to hyperspace, Naruto felt Kurama's presence settle into comfortable warmth. You're changing this galaxy, Kit. Maybe not the way you intended, but you're making a difference. That's all I can do, Naruto thought back. Make a difference. One fight at a time. But neither of them knew that in the Senate building on Coruscant, Darth Sidious was already adapting his plans. The Void engine had been a test, and while it had failed, it had provided valuable data. The Shinobi from another dimension could be suppressed. His powers weren't infinite. And most importantly, he cared about people, a weakness that could be exploited. The Clone Wars were entering their final phase, and Naruto Uzumaki had just become a critical piece on a chessboard where the stakes were nothing less than the fate of the galaxy itself. The war changed after Concordia. News of the Void engine spread through both Republic and Separatist channels, each side spinning the narrative to serve their purposes. The Republic claimed victory over a dangerous Separatist weapon. The Separatists declared they'd proven the Jedi's vulnerability. And caught between these propaganda machines was Naruto Uzumaki, the warrior from another dimension who'd helped destroy a device that could have altered the course of the entire Clone Wars. 3 months had passed since that battle. 3 months of missions alongside the Jedi, of fighting in conflicts he still didn't fully understand, of searching the temple archives for any clue that might lead him home. 3 months of becoming something he'd never expected, a legend in a galaxy that wasn't his own. The clone troopers called him, the Orange Flash, a nickname that made him laugh because it sounded like something his enemies back home would have coined mockingly. But here, it was said with respect, the Shinobi who fought beside them without hesitation, who created impossible numbers to even the odds, who never left anyone behind. The Jedi Council still didn't know quite what to make of him. Master Yoda watched him with those ancient eyes that seemed to see through time itself. Mace Windu maintained cautious distance, never quite trusting someone whose power operated outside the Force's purview. But Obi-Wan had become something like a friend, and Anakin, complicated, conflicted Anakin, had found a kindred spirit in someone who understood what it meant to carry power that others feared. Now, Naruto stood in the temple's meditation gardens as Coruscant's sun set, casting the galaxy-wide city in shades of amber and rose. Ahsoka sat nearby, her legs crossed in meditation pose, though her eyes kept drifting open to watch him. "You're leaving," she said finally. "Not a question." "Just for a while," Naruto replied. "There's a lead, an ancient Jedi text that mentions something called the world between worlds. A place where time and space connect, where dimensions might touch. It's a long shot, but it's hope," Ahsoka finished. She stood, brushing off her robes. "Master Kenobi says hope is what keeps the Jedi fighting, even in the darkest times. I think you've given us a lot of that, whether you meant to or not. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Ahsoka corrected gently. "You did what Naruto Uzumaki would do. That's different. Most people, faced with being trapped in an alien galaxy in the middle of a war that isn't theirs, would hide. would try to stay safe until they found a way home. You didn't. You fought. You saved people. You stood against a Sith Lord and lived to tell about it, twice. 3 times, technically, Naruto said with a slight grin. But who's counting? They walked together through the gardens, past Jedi Masters in quiet contemplation and Padawans practicing their forms. The temple had become familiar to Naruto in ways he hadn't expected, not home, but not foreign either. A waypoint between worlds. Will you come back? Ahsoka asked as they reached the garden's edge. If you find your way home, I mean. Will you come back to visit? Naruto thought about that. About his village, his friends, the responsibilities waiting for him. About Sakura and Kakashi and Tsunade and everyone else who probably thought he was dead. About a world that needed him. But he also thought about Rex and the 501st, about the Twi'lek child he'd saved on Ryloth, about the way Obi-Wan's beard twitched when he was amused but trying to maintain Jedi dignity. About Ahsoka, young and fierce and learning what it meant to be a Jedi in the worst possible circumstances. If I can, he said honestly. This place, this galaxy, it's got problems. Big ones. But it's also got people worth fighting for. If there's ever a way to help from across dimensions, I will. Good, Ahsoka said, and suddenly she was hugging him, her mantrals pressing against his shoulder. Because you've become kind of like an annoying older brother, and I'd miss that. Naruto hugged her back, feeling the weight of connection that transcended universes. You're going to be an amazing Jedi, Ahsoka. Never doubt that. When they separated, Anakin was approaching from the temple proper, Obi-Wan at his side. Both Jedi wore expressions that suggested news, and not necessarily good news. We've received intelligence, Obi-Wan said without preamble. Separatist fleet movements near the Quilii sector. It looks like they're planning something significant. And they want us there, Anakin added, his mechanical hand flexing unconsciously. You too, Naruto. Specifically. Dooku? Naruto guessed. Possibly. Or, Obi-Wan hesitated. Or someone higher up the chain. We've received communications suggesting that Darth Sidious himself has taken an interest in you. The name sent a chill down Naruto's spine. He'd heard it whispered in briefings, mentioned in classified reports. The mysterious Sith Lord who orchestrated the Clone Wars from the shadows, whose identity remained unknown even to the Jedi Council. Careful, Kit, Kurama warned. That one is dangerous in ways these Jedi don't fully understand. I can feel it, even across the Force, even through all the noise of this galaxy. He's the real threat here. I know, Naruto thought back. But when has that ever stopped us? When do we leave? Naruto asked aloud. At dawn, Anakin replied. But Naruto, you don't have to come. This isn't your war. If you found a lead to get home, no one would blame you for pursuing it. The lead can wait a few more days, Naruto said. Besides, you guys have saved my life more times than I can count. The least I can do is return the favor. Still convinced you can save everyone, are you? Obi-Wan asked, but there was warmth in his voice. Not everyone, Naruto admitted. But I can try. That's what my ninja way is all about, never giving up, never going back on my word. I told you I'd help, so I'm helping. They stood together as the last light faded from Coruscant's endless skyline, for warriors bound by circumstance and choice. Tomorrow would bring another battle, another test of strength and will. But tonight, they had this moment, the calm before the storm, the breath before the plunge. Somewhere in the galaxy, Count Dooku prepared his forces for confrontation, certain that this time he would either convert or eliminate the dimensional anomaly. Darth Sidious watched through his web of spies and manipulation, calculating how best to use this new variable in his grand plan to destroy the Jedi and establish his empire. And on countless worlds, clone troopers prepared for deployment, their loyalty programmed but their courage entirely their own. Civilians hid in their homes, hoping the war would pass them by. Jedi meditated on the will of the Force, unaware that destiny was being written by forces they couldn't fully comprehend. But Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village, stood ready. He'd been pulled from his world into a conflict that spanned an entire galaxy. He'd fought Sith lords and battle droids, saved civilians and earned the respect of warriors who'd never heard of chakra or ninjutsu. He still didn't fully understand this place. He still missed his home with an ache that never quite faded. He still struggled with the Force interference that made every technique cost more chakra than it should. But he'd learned something important, the principles that had guided him in his world worked here too. Bonds mattered. Protecting others mattered. Never giving up mattered. Whether he was in the elemental nations or a galaxy far, far away, those truths remained constant. And when the dawn came and they boarded the gunship that would carry them to another battle, Naruto wore his orange jacket like armor and his hataye like a crown. He was a stranger in a strange land, a warrior displaced from his reality. But he was also exactly where he needed to be. The Force might bind the galaxy together, connecting all living things in its invisible web. But it had learned something from the shinobi's arrival. There were powers beyond its understanding, energies that operated on different principles, and individuals whose determination could rival destiny itself. The Clone Wars would continue. Battles would be won and lost. Heroes would rise and fall. And through it all, Naruto Uzumaki would fight, not for the Republic or against the Separatists, not for the light side or the dark, but for the simple principle that had guided him since childhood. Protect what's precious. Never abandon your comrades. Never give up. That was his ninja way. And even in a galaxy far, far away, it would be enough. May the Force be with you. More stories await.